Chapter 300. Guan Xiong's words made Sumo extremely shocked. Guan Xiong, is what you said true? Sumo was skeptical, because he had never felt any abnormality in his danci. If there was really wine that could break through the deity tribulation, how could he not feel it? Guan Xiong, an undead realm cultivator, could see through the situation of his body. However, Yi Wu Hui was an immortal almighty. Could it be that he did not discover his potential? Or Yi Wu Hui discovered it, but did not tell him? Sumo pondered. What? You don't believe my undead realm cultivator's judgment? Guan Xiong curled his lips. Guan Xiong, you just advanced to undead realm a few days ago, right? Sumo suddenly asked with a serious face. Guan Xiong was surprised. Sumo, how did you know? Guan Xiong had indeed advanced to undead realm less than half a month ago. Sumo immediately sneered, because I guess you're still excited. You keep saying undead realm. Just wait until I reach the undead realm. I will definitely beat you up first. AI. Difficult. Undead realm is not so easy to advance. Strength, talent, opportunity, and diligence are indispensable. Fortunately, I have all of them. Otherwise, Guan Xiong shook his head, looking very emotional. Can't you speak properly? Sumo could not stand it anymore. Otherwise, I can look for Miss Meow to ask about the situation. Cough, cough. When Sumo mentioned Meow, Guan Xiong almost choked on the wine in his mouth. Sumo, we brothers have something to talk about. Drinking and chatting. Not looking for Mississippi. Then tell me, is what you said just now true? Sumo said. Of course. Guan Xiong no longer joked and said seriously, Sumo, your talent is different from others. Immortal root is strange. If I did not take your pulse, I would not have discovered everything in your body. Sumo responded. This sentence barely explained why Yi Wu Hui hadn't discovered anything. Look, although the eldest miss has a high level of cultivation, she doesn't seem to have noticed the special situation in your body, Guan Xiong said. Sumo nodded. Then what should I do now? What should I do to convert the wine energy in my body into my own cultivation? This. Guan Xiong smiled awkwardly. I can only see your condition, but I can't solve it. Tomorrow, you can ask eldest Mississippi. If she doesn't have a way, you can ask her to help you ask the city lord. There must be a way. If you can convert everything into cultivation, then you won't be far from the undead realm. What realm is young Miss Meow at? Perfect break world. Guan Xiong thought about it. But there's another saying. Is the third tier of sky immortals. However, I don't quite understand what the celestial immortal realm is. I've only heard about it once. Third layer sky immortal. Sumo's heart stirred, because he had also heard of another realm classification from Yi Wu Hui. Guan Xiong, is young Miss Meow the daughter of the Northern Chill City Lord? No, she is his disciple. Guan Xiong shook his head. But she is the only disciple of the city lord. So, in the entire Northern Chill City, she is second only to the city lord. Guan Xiong looked like he was about to cry. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been bullied by him like this. Sumo laughed coldly. Guan Xiong, don't act like you've been bullied. I don't think young Miss Meow is bullying you. She's being nice to you. Otherwise, who would bully you until you are in the undead realm? Guan Xiong laughed. In fact, he knew what was going on. However, he had gotten used to making fun of others over the years. The two of them drank another glass of wine. At this time, the snow was getting heavier and heavier. The plum blossoms were blooming not far away. It was a good day to enjoy the snow and drink wine. Guan Xiong, tell me about the Northern Chill City, Sumo asked. In fact, Sumo had been interested in the Northern Chill City ever since Miao Long brought him back to the city. What kind of city is the Northern Chill City? Is the city lord a peerless grand cultivator? Guan Xiong took a sip of wine and squinted at Sumo's question. He leaned back on the bamboo chair and let out a long sigh. Sumo, to be precise, the Northern Chill City doesn't belong to the chaotic gods continent. It doesn't even belong to the Pure Land. Although Sumo was prepared, Guan Xiong's words still surprised him. Sumo, you are already a deity tribulation cultivator, and you will reach the undead realm soon. So, there are a lot of things you should know. I think this is one of the reasons why young Miss Meow brought you back to the Northern Chill City and then left you here. Sumo listened, but didn't say a word. The world we are in now is called the Pure Land. You should know this. The Pure Land is divided into two worlds, the center and the periphery. Between the two worlds is a bottomless chasm. The periphery world is divided into three continents: White Bone, Chaotic God, and Ancient Shu. These three continents are arranged in a circle, and there are also chasms between them. Between them, each level is higher than the other. White Bone is the weakest, and its upper limit is the deity tribulation. Chaotic God is slightly stronger, and its upper limit is the early stage of God-burying. Ancient Shu is the strongest, but its highest level is the early stage of breaking world. That is also the highest level in the periphery of the Pure Land. Sumo frowned and said, I know a little about the layout of the Pure Land. According to what you said, all the cultivators above the early stage of God-burying are not from the Chaotic God's continent. Similarly, cultivators above the early stage of breaking world are not from the periphery of the Pure Land. That's right, Guan Xiong said. What about the center of the Pure Land? I heard you say that there is Tian Fu above and 9 serenities below. The bitter Samsara Sea is the center of the Pure Land. The bitter Samsara Sea is the center of the Pure Land. On the bitter Samsara Sea, there is a city 108,000 zhang high. It is called Tian Fu. It is said to be under the sky, above all living things. Under the bitter Samsara Sea, there is a city 108,000 zhang deep. It is called 9 serenities. It is the 9 serenities city that we met before. Under the sky, above all living things. This sentence was domineering. Sumo thought. 3 continents, the bitter Samsara Sea, Tian Fu City, and 9 Serenity City. That is the entire structure of the Pure Land. What about the highest level of cultivation in the center of the Pure Land? Sumo asked. I am not sure because the center of the Pure Land is special, Guan Xiong replied. But as far as I know, the later stage of breaking world can break the barrier and reach another world. So, Tian Fu and 9 serenities should not be higher than breaking world. Another world? Yes. According to what the lady said, there are many worlds outside the Pure Land. These worlds are all floating on the perfume sea. The Pure Land is like a lotus flower on the sea. Perfume sea? Lotus flower. At that moment, the world in Sumo's mind expanded endlessly. Moreover, he remembered the painting he saw in Mu Jinghong's cave. The handsome man said, 1 flower, 1 world, 1 leaf, 1 universe. Actually, I can cross the sea on the lotus flower and go straight to White Mountain. If the Pure Land was a lotus flower, then there should be a white mountain on the perfume sea. Chapter 301. Outside the Pure Land, there were other worlds. The worlds floated on the perfume sea like lotuses. Everything Guan Xiong said was very mysterious. But Sumo didn't have much trouble accepting it, because in Sumo's subconscious, he also believed that the world should be like this. Guan Xiong, have you ever been outside the Pure Land? Sumo asked. No. Guan Xiong looked at the snow in the sky. If you want to leave the Pure Land, you have to be at least at the breaking world level. In the entire Northern Chill City, only the lady and the city master can travel between the worlds. No one else can. Oh. Sumo suddenly remembered that she didn't see many cultivators along the way. She asked, Guan Xiong, how many cultivators are there in the entire Northern Chill City? Why is it so empty along the way? There aren't many people here. Ha! Guan Xiong laughed. That's right. Let me tell you, there are less than 10,000 people in the entire Northern Chill City. 10,000. Sumo was shocked. That's too few. Looking at the Northern Chill City from afar, I think it's at least 30 miles long. That's right. The Northern Chill City is a square, 30 miles from east to west and 30 miles from north to south. It's not a small area, but the population is less than 10,000. Are the 10,000 people all cultivators? Sumo asked. Yes. Guan Xiong nodded. People in the Northern Chill City are born with immortal roots. We can all cultivate, and before we reach the undead realm, Our cultivation speed isn't slow. Within 10,000 years, almost all of us can reach the deity tribulation realm, but it takes a lot of effort to reach the undead realm. Some deity tribulation realm cultivators are sent to travel around the continents in search of opportunities to break through. Like you, Sumo said, all the descendants of the immortal void realm on the Bone Land came from the northern Chill City, right? Yes, the descendants of the immortal void realm are cultivators from the northern Chill City. However, some of them have been there for a long time, while others have been there for a short time. Guan Xiong nodded, but I didn't go there just to train. I went there on a mission. Patrol the bones and search for the heart of the white bone. Sumo had heard Guan Xiong mention this purpose earlier. Yes, Guan Xiong poured more wine for Sumo and himself. Did you find the bone's heart? Sumo asked. Hee. Guan Xiong looked at Sumo, squinted his eyes, and laughed. Of course I found the white bone heart. I'll show you later. Oh, that's not bad. Of course, Sumo did not know that the white bone heart had always been in his hands. The white bone continent is a strange place. Guan Xiong didn't invite Sumo. Instead, he drank a mouthful of wine by himself. You should remember the battle between Wu Luan and Bai Gu. Bai Lai and I will work together to seal the bone continent. Of course I remember. Sumo frowned. It wasn't just that one time. When he was in the Immortal Temple, the Li brothers' technique seemed to have triggered a reaction from the white bones. However, in the end, it was suppressed by the Mute Master. That's right. Guan Xiong nodded. Within the Pure Land, many people are eyeing the white bone continent. Even the powers outside the Pure Land covet the white bone continent. Why? Sumo said. Of course it's because of power. Guan Xiong's eyes narrowed. Sumo, your skeletons came from the Silent Death Valley, right? Yes. Sumo didn't hide anything. Of course, she didn't say anything. Those skeletons of yours can only be considered the remains of otherworldly powerhouses. When I say remains, I don't mean that they are incomplete. Instead, I mean that the immortal power contained within them is almost negligible. Negligible. Sumo grinned. This was because, even until now, he couldn't control the 9 golden skeletons at will. Yet, Guan Xiong said that the immortal power in those skeletons was negligible. That's a bit unbelievable, right? Guan Xiong laughed. Although I can't enter the Silent Death Valley, my information should be correct. The true bodies of those skeletons were otherworldly, peerless powerhouses in their previous lives. Sumo was confused. Otherworldly powerhouses? To what extent? Actually, Sumo didn't dare to believe Guan Xiong's words. To what extent? Guan Xiong could hear the doubt in Sumo's tone. To the extent that if any of them were alive, they could destroy the entire Pure Land world effortlessly. Guan Xiong emphasized the last half of his sentence, indicating that he wasn't joking. Sumo's expression turned solemn. This was because he knew that there was an ancient temple in the Silent Death Valley that he couldn't enter. Moreover, he had seen a mirror image of a great battle outside the ancient temple. What Guan Xiong said should be true. There was no need for him to lie. Inside the Silent Death Valley, there are a total of 81 skeletons, right? Guan Xiong looked at Sumo with deep meaning. This question completely dispelled Sumo's doubts. Sumo nodded and opened her mouth to ask. Don't ask me how I know. Guan Xiong shook his head. If there's a chance, you can ask the young miss or the city lord. They told me this. The skeletons in the Silent Death Valley are not my main point. What I want to say is, don't you think that those skeletons are already very powerful? However, compared to the White Bone Continent, they're like clouds and mud. They can't be mentioned in the same breath. Listen to me slowly, Guan Xiong said as he fiddled with the wine cup in his hand. He seemed to be thinking about where to start. Sumo didn't say anything and just drank a mouthful of wine in a depressed manner. Everything Guan Xiong said tonight would definitely be enough for him to digest. The White Bone Continent was formed from the corpse of an otherworldly powerhouse, Guan Xiong said first. And Sumo's expression slightly changed. This was because he had some speculations about this from Sumo's experiences. But when he heard it with his own ears, he was still shocked. The White Bone Continent, one of the 3 continents of the Pure Land, was actually a corpse. What realm was the corpse of that almighty powerhouse to be able to give birth to living beings? Sumo asked. The city lord told me that it was the peak of the rebirth realm or the 9 eternal realms. Guanxiong's small eyes revealed a trace of confusion. Unfortunately, I only know the names of those realms because they are too far out of my reach. Peak of the rebirth realm. 9 eternal realms? Sumo muttered to himself. Of course, he didn't know what that meant. Above the mortal world is immortality, and above immortality is reincarnation. Sumo said, "Oh." Guanxiong smiled. "It seems like you met an expert." Sumo nodded, but he didn't mention Yi Wuhui. Unfortunately, she only told me that the immortality realm is divided into God-burying, world-breaking, and sea extermination. Do you know what the rebirth realm is? Guanxiong laughed bitterly. I am the same as you. I don't have the qualifications to know. Young Miss said that my realm is too low, and it is useless to know more. Oh, same reason. Sumo was obviously referring to Yi Wuhui's reason. But Guanxiong, the expert, told me that the highest realm in the Pure Land should be God-burying. Why do you say it is world-breaking? Guanxiong rolled his eyes at Sumo. You said it yourself. It is only in theory. Theoretically, you, an early-stage deity tribulation realm cultivator, can't kill a late-stage deity tribulation realm cultivator? But if you didn't meet an undying realm cultivator, I am afraid you are invincible among your peers, right? Sumo was speechless. Actually, that expert was right. Guanxiong sighed. Break the world. Break the world. Break the world. Break the world. However, there are always cultivators in this world who are willing to stay in a time and space that should not exist. For example, the city lord of the northern Chill City. Sumo smiled. Guanxiong smiled and nodded. What realm is the city lord of the northern Chill City? Sumo asked curiously. Reincarnation. Guanxiong said seriously. Reincarnation? Sumo's eyes suddenly lit up. Chapter 302. Rebirth State? The city lord was at the rebirth state. Sumo couldn't stay calm after hearing Guanxiong's words. The mute master might have been at the rebirth state, but they hadn't known each other for long. Sumo wanted to know more about the rebirth state. He was in the northern Chill City now, and the city lord was the rebirth mirror. Wouldn't he be in a favorable position? He could learn more about the situation from the northern cold city lord. Guanxiong glanced at Sumo. He knew what Sumo was thinking. Mu Jinghong's words, "I'll wait for you in the rebirth realm," filled Su Mo with a thirst for the rebirth realm. Su Mo, the city lord of the northern Chill City, is very secretive. She hasn't appeared for hundreds of years. I only saw her once when I returned to the northern Chill City. So, it's not easy to meet the city lord. But it depends on your luck. After all, you're a soul bearer from the Bone Land. There are soul bearers. Sumo interrupted Guanxiong. Yes, there are soul bearers, Guanxiong said. I just said that the Bone Land was formed by the corpse of a grand cultivator from another world. The peak stage of the rebirth state is beyond our imagination. So, even though he's only a corpse, he can still give birth to living beings. However, the real lives on the Bone Land are all soul bearers. What's the difference? A soulless, as the name suggests, is a person without a soul. Guanxiong sighed. People without souls? Sumo frowned. He didn't see anyone without a soul on the Bone Land. To be more specific, the people on the Bone Land can only reach the perfected soul transformation stage. They can't go through the divine tribulation. Once they do, they'll be killed by the tribulation lightning on the Bone Land. There's no exception. Oh, what about Bai Lai? Sumo asked. He's not from the Bone Land? Haha. Of course, Bai Lai isn't from the Bone Continent. Guanxiong said, within the 5 wheels Bai Lai, the Wind Wheel lineage, and the Mute Warrior all have souls. Other than them, even the Sacred Wool Patriarch was only at the great circle of the soul transformation realm, let alone the rest. Don't be fooled by the fact that the 5 wheels and Slekton sect have merged into one and are known as the Divine Tribulation sect. However, I can guarantee that not a single divine tribulation will appear in the next 1,000 years. Sumo frowned and listened without asking any questions. The great perfection of the soul transformation realm, is the limit of the soulless. This was because once one entered the deity's tribulation, they would need the nourishment of soul energy. However, the creatures on the white bones are born without soul chi. Because that skeleton doesn't have soul energy, the creature on it is just a parasite on it. They only had one life. They cannot be reborn, nor could they reincarnate. Sumo, do you understand? Sumo smiled bitterly. He suddenly felt a sense of pity in his heart. He knew many people in the 5 wheels. It didn't matter if those fellow disciples were good or bad. They were all soulless. Those with souls could cultivate to a higher level and even reincarnate. Therefore, the creatures on the bone mainland are like ants in the eyes of cultivators from other continents. In fact, they are even worse than ants. Guanxiong looked at Sumo and smiled helplessly. Only the soulless of the bone mainland would value their one life. For example, the Holy Will Patriarch would rather kill his fellow sect mates in exchange for 100,000 years of peace. The most valuable thing about the bone mainland is itself. As long as one controls the bone mainland, it is equivalent to having a puppet at the rebirth state. A puppet at the rebirth state. Sumo frowned. Even if the Almighty from the other world was at the peak of the rebirth state, he is already dead. How can a skeleton still be at the rebirth state? Guanxiong shook his head. I don't know the specifics. After all, the reincarnation mirror is like a myth to me. However, it should be the creatures on the bone mainland that have preserved the spirit chi of the white bones. Furthermore what? Furthermore, the city lord seems to be observing the white bones. She seems to be worried about the white bones. Before me, there has always been a patrol envoy on the bone mainland, and I'm the last one. Why? Can the white bones come back to life? Sumo thought that she was joking, but Guanxiong frowned slightly and did not reply. Huh? Sumo couldn't help but stare blankly. Could it really be that there was such a possibility? I don't know. Guanxiong shook his head. But it should not be possible anymore. Because the bone heart has been found. As long as the bone heart is in hand, and its head and legs are sealed, the white bones should never be able to wake up. Otherwise, I don't think the city lord will recall the patrol envoy. Unless what? Unless one day you wanted to wake up. Guanxiong looked at Sumo with a smile that was not a smile. I wanted to wake up? Sumo stared blankly at Guanxiong, not knowing what he meant. Of course, you didn't hear wrong. Guanxiong laughed. Sumo, didn't you want to see the bone heart? I will show it to you now. After Guanxiong finished speaking, he did not rummage through his storage bag, but reached out to Sumo. Sumo was stunned. What are you waiting for? Guanxiong laughed. Take out your red dust ancient fan. When Sumo heard this, his heart skipped a beat. Could it be that the heart of the white bone is with me? Then, Sumo's mind moved, and the red dust ancient fan flew out. Sumo did not take it, and it fell directly into Guanxiong's hands. Guanxiong took the ancient fan and sighed softly. Swish! Guanxiong opened the ancient fan and narrowed his eyes. In fact, this was not the first time he saw this ancient fan. However, after he opened it, the ancient fan was simply ordinary. The front of the fan was filled with strange rocks and wood, and in the middle, there was a white skeleton sitting cross-legged. On the back, there were dense white ancient characters. The art of unwithered. These 3 characters were printed on it. On the handle of the fan, there was naturally a dark red jade pendant. However, the jade pendant in Guanxiong's hand did not have any reaction. It's still the same. Guanxiong sighed and laughed. Actually, when I first entered 5 wheels, I heard that 5 wheels had an ominous ancient fan. I secretly took it out, but it did not look strange in my hand. I had no choice but to send it back. Saying this, Guanxiong handed the ancient fan to Sumo. Sumo took it, and the ancient fan seemed to come alive in an instant. A faint brilliance appeared, especially the jade pendant that suddenly lit up. You really should be its owner, Guanxiong said. Sumo, this jade pendant is actually the bone heart. It has always been in your hand. Oh, although Sumo already had a guess, she could not help but touch the jade pendant. Bone heart. Whoosh! The jade pendant shone with a vermilion brilliance. The words red dust suddenly shone. At this moment, the entire bone continent shook slightly. Bai Lai, who was sunbathing at the entrance of the Divine Tribulation sect, could not help but frown. He thought that the bone continent had moved. In the tallest building in northern Chill City, a purple figure looked in the direction of the Reflection Temple and sighed softly. Chapter 303. The heart of white bone suddenly lit up. Sumo held the jade pendant in his hand, but he wasn't too surprised. It wasn't the first time he saw something like this, but this time it was brighter. Guanxiong, is this really the heart of white bone? Definitely. Guanxiong nodded. I see that every time you control the skeletons, you hold the ancient fan. With it, you can control the skeletons more freely, right? That's right. Sumo nodded. That's right. This is the heart of white bone. But you can't use its full power yet. Sumo, now that you have this heart of white bone, in the future, the entire white bone continent will be under your control. The puppet of the mirror of samsara? Hearing Guanxiong's words, Sumo's heart trembled, because it was too shocking. My puppet is a continent. Currently, Sumo didn't even dare to think about it. Huh, shocking, right? Guanxiong said. But if you want to control the white bone continent freely, I'm afraid you'll have to be immortal for a lifetime. So, don't get too excited. That's something very far away. Immortal for a lifetime. That was Yi Wuhui's realm. But Sumo had never seen Yi Wuhui's true strength. Yi Wuhui had never fought in front of Sumo. Immortal for a lifetime was just a concept to Sumo, just like the rebirth realm. Then where did Yi Wuhui go? Sumo pondered. Actually, with Yi Wuhui's cultivation, it shouldn't be difficult to find Sumo on the chaotic gods continent. Moreover, Sumo had left a mark at the place where they had parted. As long as Yi Wuhui went back, he would definitely find it. Could an immortal, for a lifetime, be in danger on the chaotic gods continent? Thinking of Yi Wuhui, Sumo was a little dazed. What? Are you indulging in the fantasy of controlling reincarnation puppets and slaughtering all worlds in the future? Guanxiong laughed. Guanxiong's question caused Sumo to retract her thoughts. He looked at the red pendant in his hand. The word red dust was extremely eye-catching. Guanxiong, do you know what the word Hongchu means? I'm not sure about that. Guanxiong shook his head. At this time, the snow in the sky gradually stopped. The top of the wall and the plum blossoms were all covered in snow. Perhaps you can ask eldest Mississippi. Guanxiong drank the remaining wine in his cup. Didn't she tell you to recuperate here first? Once she recovered, she would definitely come again. I've given you some simple information. I don't know anything more than that. However, I don't think the first mistress would bring you back to the northern Chill City for no reason. It should be the city lord's intention. The lord of the northern Chill City wants to see me? Sumo pondered in her heart. She was looking forward to it. The history of a northern Chill City should be counted in millions of years. However, it floated indefinitely, traversing through worlds. Most of the time, it can't be based on the world it's in. However, it has been staying in the void north of the chaotic gods for the past tens of thousands of years. Why doesn't it travel through worlds anymore? I don't know. Everything should be decided by the city lord. Guanxiong, what's your status in the northern Chill City? Sumo asked a key question. What status? Guanxiong rolled his eyes and pondered. Don't brag. Sumo warned him. Huh? Guanxiong was a little embarrassed. He was about to brag since Sumo wasn't familiar with the northern Chill City anyway. According to my current level, I might be able to enter the top 500 in the northern Chill City. Guanxiong was obviously not confident. Top 500? Sumo looked at Guanxiong and gasped. Does that mean there are at least 500 cultivators of the undead state in the northern Chill City? 10,000 cultivators, and 500 of them are above the undead state? That's too powerful. Maybe less than 500, but it should be close. Guanxiong thought that Sumo had found out that he was bragging and was afraid that he would ask Miao longer about it. Sumo looked at Guanxiong and didn't know what to say. Guanxiong's words were not true. The northern Chill City was unbelievable. Huh? Guanxiong paused. But I am Lady Miao's direct subordinate. My status in the northern Chill City is much higher than that of the ordinary undead cultivators. Guanxiong wasn't bragging when he said this. Guanxiong's cultivation level wasn't outstanding in the northern Chill City, but he was indeed Miao Longer's most trusted servant or playmate. Miao Longer might be fierce to Guanxiong, but that was just a facade. Su Imo nodded his head. He believed this, and even he himself could see it. Guanxiong, what kind of person is the city lord? Sumo asked again. Guanxiong pondered for a moment, trying to find the right words to express himself. He is heartless, Guanxiong said in the end. I don't know how to comment on her other than this, because I really don't have the qualifications to understand her. He is heartless. Sumo frowned and nodded. Guanxiong didn't say anything else. The two drank a few more cups. After that, they chatted about some unimportant topics or some lighthearted topics. Guanxiong said that when he left the city, he would take Sumo to wipe out the Dongfang clan. Sumo despised Guanxiong because he had just reached the undead realm. But even without Guanxiong's words, the Dongfang clan's matter would not have ended so easily. If it weren't for Miao Longer's lotus petal, Sumo would have died under the heaven-splitting arrow. Sumo hadn't really taken revenge for the dragon elephant soul-devouring beast. In the future, she would figure out everything and settle all the old and new grudges. Sumo and Guanxiong drank to their heart's content. It was not until the night gradually turned warm that the two of them finally separated. There were plenty of rooms in the reflection temple, so Sumo randomly chose one to meditate and rest. He needed some time to digest everything that Guanxiong told him. Sumo had a deep understanding of the Pure Land. However, he also had more questions. For example, why did the heart of Whitebone resonate with him? Why did he, a person with a soul, come to the Whitebone mainland? Why did the Windwheel clan, Bai Lai, and even Mu Jinghong appear in the Whitebone mainland? Sumo couldn't answer all these questions. Thus, Sumo adjusted his breathing and meditated. The poison and internal injuries in his body were still very serious. However, Sumo suddenly remembered the ink-colored boat from the Undead Nation's Ink Lake. He had been looking for Yi Wuhui for the past few days and forgot about the boat. Now was the time to take a look. Opening the tattered cloth bag, Sumo stretched out his hand and held the boat in his palm. At this moment, the boat had shrunk to the size of 7 inches, and Sumo felt quite heavy holding it in his palm. But it looked even more exquisite. The ink flowed and the black light glowed. Devil-crossing fate, undead and indestructible. Those 8 words were faintly discernible on the boat. At that moment, there seemed to be an old man's voice calling out in Sumo's mind. But that voice was extremely faint and far away. When Sumo focused, the voice disappeared, as if Sumo had heard wrongly. Moreover, there was a flash of red rose on the boat. Sumo thought of the black rose in the ink lake again, and he felt that everything was not simple. But he still couldn't see the cause and effect. Chapter 304. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. Sumo was having a good time in the Reflection Temple. His poison and internal injuries had completely healed. During the 7 days, he and Guanxiong had nothing to do and talked about cultivation. That was why Sumo had benefited a lot. Guanxiong was at the undead state after all. Back then, Guanxiong had been brought back to northern Chill City after they parted ways on the Bone Land. He hadn't left the city in 1,000 years and had been cultivating wholeheartedly. So, to some extent, Guanxiong's 1,000 years were more valuable than Sumo's. Thanks to Guanxiong, Sumo had a more direct and deeper understanding of undying cultivators. There were many undead state cultivators in northern Chill City, but that didn't mean they were everywhere. The mortal realm meant that cultivators couldn't escape from the mortal world. The undead state was the last level of the mortal realm. The so-called undead state was just a kind of transcendence, not true immortality. However, cultivators at the perfected stage of the undead state could live up to 100,000 years. 100,000 years was a long time even for cultivators who could fly in the sky and burrow underground. Many of the so-called ancient sects on the Bone Land and the Chaotic Godland were less than 100,000 years old. Therefore, the undead state was the highest level of the mortal realm, and it wasn't easy to reach. And now, Guanxiong wasn't satisfied with Sumo's personal combat ability. He felt that after 1,000 years, apart from the deity tribulation, Sumo hadn't improved much. His other combat techniques and magical arts did not improve much. In fact, Sumo had not been able to unleash the full power of many of the Windwheel lineage's inheritances. In terms of combat ability, Guanxiong even thought that Sumo hadn't improved much compared to the Soul Formation tribulation. She mostly relied on skeletons and puppets to fight in critical moments. Skeletons and puppets were essentially external objects and Dharma treasures. The best combat ability was actually the cultivator himself. In fact, Sumo had the same feeling. However, he had been in a hurry ever since he woke up 1,000 years ago and hadn't had much time to focus on cultivation. This time, he decided to stay in a northern chill city for a while so that he could cultivate and improve his cultivation level. That was the only way he could protect himself on the Chaos God's continent. One should know that he was not lucky enough to meet a powerful being like Miao Long Air every time he was in a life or death situation. Another 3 days passed. Miao Long finally came to the Repent Temple again. In fact, both Guanxiong and Sumo were looking forward to her appearance. First, miss, you're finally here. I missed you so much. Guanxiong's face was full of smiles. Is there a mission for me this time? Can I leave the city now? For 1,000 years, Guanxiong was really bored to death. Miao Long glanced at Guanxiong. Guanxiong had missed her so much. Thus, she mischievously raised her hand and pinched Guanxiong's chubby face. Soon, but you still have to perform well, you know? I know. Understood. Guanxiong hurriedly nodded his head in a flattering manner. However, there was a hidden bitterness in his heart. Every time he said it would be soon, he hoped that when he reached the undead realm, he could borrow Sumo's light energy to leave the city. Sumo, how are your injuries? Miao Long let go of Guanxiong's face and turned to look at Sumo. Yes, thank you, First Mississippi. My internal injuries and poison are all healed. Thanks to Guanxiong's care these days, my injuries have recovered quickly. Sumo said. The last sentence about Guanxiong's care was something that Guanxiong had requested Sumo to say. Yes. Miao Long nodded and looked at Guanxiong with a satisfied expression. Guanxiong's face was naturally full of smiles. Sumo, come with me. Miao Long said. Okay. Sumo happened to have a lot of things to ask Miao Long. First, miss, can I come with you? Guanxiong smiled apologetically. No. Miao Long directly refused. He looked at the pitiful Guanxiong and said, if you are bored, you can go to the city. However, you can't go to Mo Xiaohua's Spirit Bee shop or the Beautiful Widow's Spirit Food shop. Also, try not to go to Rui's shop. Also, Miao Long ordered 6 or 7 shops in one breath. Judging from the names, they were all women. Guanxiong nodded at first, but then he directly drooped his head and put on a sad face. Sumo could feel Miao Long's strong jealousy and couldn't help but find it funny. First, miss, how about I don't go out? Guanxiong lost all interest. Oomph. Miao Long glared at him and said, what? If you don't go to their shop, don't you have other places to play? You can go to Tai Dan's shop and see how his forging progress is. You can also go to the East City Wong family and see if their coffins are still made. If not, you can go to the Yin family and see if their silk shop has any new goods. Buy me a few pieces of good material and go to the Water Cloud Pavilion and buy me a few rouge pills. Miao Long said arrogantly. Oh, all right. Guanxiong lowered his head, but he didn't dare to refuse. Otherwise, he would definitely be beaten up, let alone leave. By the way, if you dare to leave the city without permission, you'll be punished. Miao Long didn't say anything. He just sneered twice. However, the threat was obvious. This caused Guanxiong to tremble in fear. When he had just returned, he had been tormented by Miao Long quite a bit. It was Guanxiong's nightmare. Eldest miss, how could I dare? Guanxiong scowled miserably. There's nothing else. I'm going out to get some fresh air. As he spoke, Guanxiong let out a long sigh. His body moved, and he instantly disappeared. Every time he wanted to go out, he had to apply, and he had to be warned. Guanxiong was really depressed. After Guan Xiong left, Miao Long looked at Sumo. Perhaps she herself felt that she had gone a little overboard in front of Sumo, so her words just now were a little too full of jealousy. Cough, cough. You don't know this, but Guan Xiong has been mischievous since he was young. If you don't keep a close eye on him, he will definitely cause trouble. I'm doing this for his own good. That's right. Sumo hastily said, Eldest Miss is right. With Guan Xiong's undisciplined and playful nature, you have to regulate what he does. Otherwise, it's really hard to say. In fact, Guan Xiong told me privately that he likes Eldest Miss to control him. He feels that he is especially beautiful. Really? Guan Xiong really said that? Miao Long was skeptical. Of course. Sumo patted her chest and guaranteed. If you don't believe me, you can ask Guan Xiong. At this time, if Guan Xiong hadn't left, he would have probably beaten Sumo into a pig. I believe you. Miao Long looked at Sumo and suddenly felt that she was more pleasing to the eye. In the future, if Guan Xiong says anything about me, you must tell me. Do you understand? You will definitely benefit from it. Eldest Miss, don't worry. Even if you didn't say it, I was also thinking about it. Sumo had already seen through Miao Long's feelings for Guan Xiong. She pushed the boat with the current and asked for a big favor. Unfortunately, Guan Xiong would have to live under Eldest Miss Miao's violence from now on. However, Sumo couldn't care less. Very good. Miao Long nodded in satisfaction. Sumo, follow me. Eldest Miss, where are we going? Sumo asked. You'll know when we get there. Miao Long said and waved his hand, creating a purple light. Sumo only saw a faint light in front of her, and then she was covered by a purple light. Whoosh! Wine blew past her ears, but stopped in an instant. The scenery in front of Sumo had changed. At this time, they had already left the reflection house and arrived at a medium-sized square. The square was hundreds of zhang long and wide, but it was obvious that it was within a boundary. It was a martial arts field. Sumo was slightly surprised. Sumo, you need to increase your battle strength. Miao Long said lightly. This is the task given to me by the city lord. In an instant, Sumo had a bad premonition. Chapter 305 North Cold City, Training Field. Sumo looked at the empty field in confusion. Did she need a place like this to practice? Didn't a fairy practice in a cave? Miao Long saw Sumo's confusion and explained, Sumo, you need real combat, not just leveling up. Although leveling up is the most important thing, using fighting techniques and spells properly will allow you to perform better. You might even be able to explode. For the next few days, you'll be practicing fighting techniques and spells here. Yes. Sumo nodded. He understood what Miao Long meant. This was something he had been thinking about recently. He also felt like his fighting style was too simple. Miao Long looked at Sumo and shook his head. The early stage of God's test is too weak. Sumo felt awkward, but it was Miao Long who said it. In the eyes of someone who had completed the break world, Sumo was too weak. Now that she thought about it, Yu Hui was too easy to get along with. Although she was in the immortal plane, she had never said anything like that to Sumo. Sumo was too weak. Sigh. Sumo could only sigh. Young mistress, I have something to ask you, Sumo said. Go ahead. 7 days ago, Guan Xiong checked my pulse. He said my body has a spirit power that can reach the later stage of God's test, but it has not been discovered yet. I wonder if it is true. Sumo looked at Miao Long with hope. Miao Long was shocked. She really hadn't noticed that Sumo had that kind of power hidden in his body. Suddenly, Sumo reached out her left hand. She wanted Miao Long to check her pulse, but Miao Long coldly humphed. I'm not as weak as Guan Xiong, so I don't need to check. I just need to take a closer look, and I will know. Sumo awkwardly took her hand back. Looking again, Miao Long's eyebrows slightly furrowed, and a faint purple light flashed in his eyes. That scene was extremely strange. Sumo remembered that Mu Jinghong seemed to know a similar spell. Miao Long stared at Sumo for a moment. At that moment, Sumo felt as if he had been completely seen through from the inside out, completely and clearly. A special thought popped up in his mind, but he suppressed it for a moment. So what if I'm being stared at? So what if I'm being stared at? Instantly, the purple light in Miao Long's eyes dissipated. At the same time, she frowned. Because everything in Sumo's Dantian Sea was special. Early stage spirit tribulation realm. But Sumo's Dan Sea was actually comparable to an early stage undead cultivator. Furthermore, Sumo's Dan Sea did not contain any ordinary immortal roots. A green human-shaped skeleton sat cross-legged on the Nine Dragons deity dais. Miao Long, I had heard of people with strange immortal roots from his master. She knew that the two ancestral masters of the Frigid North sect were people with strange celestial roots. However, this was the first time she had seen a skeleton immortal root with her own eyes, and she had never even heard of it before. Every cultivator had their own opportunities, so everything could be explained. However, Sumo's Dan Sea and Meridians did contain an extremely powerful spiritual energy. However, the spiritual energy seemed to have been deposited for a long time, and Sumo had not absorbed it. Miao Long's expression was uncertain, which made Sumo a little anxious. Eldest Miss, what did you see? Is what Guanxiong said true? Miao Long looked at Sumo and nodded. Sumo, what Guanxiong said is true. There is indeed a special spiritual power in your Dan Sea. It is as if someone deliberately left it in your Dan Sea. Sumo, maybe I shouldn't have asked. However, you should have had some kind of fortuitous encounter, right? That's not a small gift. Sumo was pleasantly surprised when she heard that. Since what Guanxiong said was true, she might be able to reach the late-stage spirit tribulation realm very quickly. Sumo did not hide it from him. Since he had told Guanxiong, he did not intend to hide it from Miao Long. There was nothing to hide about the matter of the white-haired granny. Therefore, Sumo told him about her encounter with the white-haired granny from beginning to end. Miao Long's heart skipped a beat when he heard that. A heavenly fox? It seems that I have to report this matter to Master. However, she did not show it on her face and only nodded slightly. 1,000 years of drunkenness. Miao Long glanced at Sumo's Dan Sea again and praised sincerely. That white-haired granny is very powerful. It seems that she was afraid that your realm was not high enough, so she sealed the spiritual energy on purpose. Sumo was not thinking about how powerful the white-haired granny was, but whether the accumulated spiritual energy could be transformed into her own. Eldest Miss, can this spiritual energy be transformed into my cultivation? Miao Long thought for a moment and nodded, yes. Hearing this, Sumo's heart was filled with eagerness. Eldest Miss, please give me some pointers, Sumo said earnestly. However, it is a little troublesome. The spiritual energy has been sealed in your body for 1,000 years. Once it is released, it may be extremely violent. I need to go back and refine an elixir for you, so that you can absorb the spiritual energy safely. Oh, Sumo, thank you, Eldest Mississippi. However, it may be a little troublesome to refine this elixir. Miao Long frowned. The elixir you need is a little special, and ordinary people will not be able to use it. The city lord just left the city 3 days ago, and I don't know when he will be back. If I refine the elixir myself, I only have a 30% success rate. Of course, I can let the Elixir Pavilion in the Northern Chill City have a try, and there may be a 50% success rate. What? Sumo hurriedly said, what kind of elixir do you want to refine? Eldest Miss, if you have enough medicinal materials and can give me the elixir recipe, I could try to refine the elixir myself. You know how to refine elixirs? Miao Long looked at Sumo. Because alchemists were not common among cultivators. There were many alchemists who had a high realm, but if they did not specialize in alchemy, they might not be very good at it. Miao Long belonged to this category. Alchemy was not her forte. Sumo nodded. As long as I have the elixir recipe, I have no problem with ordinary elixirs. Really? Miao Long was skeptical. However, the soul protection pill is not an ordinary elixir. It can be considered as the top elixir in the red dust realm. What is the success rate of your usual alchemy? Success rate? Sumo was slightly surprised, because he had never considered this problem when he was concocting pills. If the success rate is not high, then forget it. Miao Long saw Sumo's expression and shook his head. I'll let the Elixir Pavilion's Undead Realm alchemist have a try. Eldest miss, it's not that the success rate of my alchemy is not high. Sumo suddenly felt a little embarrassed, an inexplicable awkwardness. It's that I have never failed. Miao Longer thought he had misheard. What? I have never failed in alchemy. Sumo felt that she might have made a mistake. How could she not fail in alchemy? This was completely illogical, but Sumo had indeed never failed. In fact, he did not even need fire for alchemy. As long as he had the elixir recipe and the ingredients, it would be fine. All he needed to do was to throw it into the soul depository cauldron, and the elixir would automatically form. Moreover, it would definitely be of top quality. Really? Miao Longer looked at Sumo in astonishment and confirmed once again. Yes. Sumo nodded. Hee, that's good. Miao Longer smiled. Then I will prepare the required ingredients and elixir recipe for you. You can refine the elixir yourself. If you succeed, you will be able to advance. If you fail, you will be responsible for the consequences. How about it? And, sure. Sumo nodded. Chapter 306. Sumo could make the soul-preserving pill herself. This was out of Miao Longer's expectation. Guanxiong had told her about Sumo, but it wasn't detailed enough. Miao Longer didn't pay much attention to Sumo before. The soul-preserving pill was finally settled. Later, Miao Longer would prepare the ingredients and let Sumo make the pill herself. Miao Longer clapped his hands. Pa! The spirit chi in the square was fluctuating. A young man appeared in the square. The young man was wearing coarse clothes with a towel over his shoulder and an apron around his waist. What? Miss? Sumo was surprised. This was clearly the appearance of a waiter. However, Sumo sensed that the young man was a late-stage deity tribulation cultivator. The waiter was a late-stage deity tribulation cultivator? Sumo was speechless. She started to doubt Guanxiong's ranking in the northern Chill City. This is the waiter from the Drunken Immortal restaurant in the west of the northern Chill City. Miao Longer said lightly. I'll let him practice with you today. Waiter. Brother, Sumo greets you. Sumo cupped her fists. That was the only way to address him. Miao Longer didn't introduce the waiter's name, so he didn't seem to know him either. However, he was definitely an ordinary cultivator in the northern Chill City. This is Sumo, an outsider. Miao Longer introduced Sumo. Brother Su, nice to meet you. The waiter bowed. He understood that even though Miao Longer said he was an outsider, the fact that he was able to stand next to the miss meant that he had an extraordinary background. Waiter, hit him hard. I'll pay if he dies. Also, I won't let you practice with him for free. If you lose, you'll lose a few supreme-grade spirit stones. If you win, I'll let Old Bai promote you to a small manager. Really? The waiter's eyes lit up. Of course. Miao Longer smiled. I always keep my word. As long as you win, there won't be a problem. Does Old Bai dare to disobey me? Young Miss words carry enormous weight. Who would dare to disobey? The waiter rubbed his hands together excitedly. Then, he looked at Sumo with a fervent gaze. Becoming a small steward of the Drunken Immortal restaurant was a small goal of the waiter. Sumo was a little embarrassed. However, it would not be easy for a late-stage deity tribulation cultivator to defeat him. He, a mere puppet, could probably defeat him. However, when he heard Sumo Longer's words, his expression instantly changed. Sumo, you're not allowed to use any puppets or magic treasures. Because little second brother doesn't need anything. Miao Longer said, if you have any powerful spells, just use them. Don't worry, I'm here. I can guarantee brother Xiao Air's safety at the critical moment. What about my safety? Sumo's face darkened. Not being able to use his puppets or magic treasures would reduce his combat power by more than half. Would he, an early-stage divine tribulation cultivator, be beaten to death by the other party? You are responsible for your own safety. I can't save you every time. Miao Longer looked at Sumo and said, fine. Sumo was unable to refute. If not for Miao Long, Sumo would have already died once. Begin. Miao Long, who did not say anything else. He directly moved his body to the side and retreated out of the circle. Hee hee. Little brother Su, I'm sorry. The waiter looked at Sumo with an apologetic expression. I really want to be a small steward. However, don't worry, I won't beat you to death. Sumo looked at the waiter speechlessly. Why were the people of Northern Chill City so annoying? However, the key point was that he might not be able to beat him. Oomph. Come. Sumo finally snorted coldly. Before his voice fell, the waiter's figure had already moved and went straight towards Sumo. The waiter's movement technique was extremely agile. Sumo did not even see how the waiter came, but the waiter had already closed in on him. At the same time, the waiter did not use any spells. Boom! He directly raised his right hand and threw a punch. Sky Cannon. This was usually a move used in wild fights. Almost cultivators in the 6th or 7th level of the Chi refinement realm would not use it. A late-stage deity tribulation cultivator unexpectedly used a sky cannon instead of a powerful spell. This made Sumo very surprised and even felt that it was a bit ridiculous. However, this sky cannon was not ordinary. Wherever the fist wind reached, a biting cold hurricane was rolled up in the void. At that moment, Sumo felt that she was surrounded by the fist wind. Fortunately, the waiter was only in the late stage of the deity tribulation. If the waiter was in the undead realm, perhaps Sumo would not be able to withstand this punch. Even so, Sumo did not dare to face it head-on. She could only suddenly retreat. Whoosh! The fist wind from the front brushed past Sumo's shoulder. Of course, Sumo could not sit still and wait for death. He instantly formed a seal with both hands. He wanted to use his spells. However, before the waiter's first punch hit, the second one came immediately. Other than that, the waiter's speed was just too fast. At this moment, Miao Longer, who was standing outside, could not help but nod slightly. This realm, this speed was indeed outstanding. Whoosh! The waiter's second punch. Sumo's spell had not been formed successfully. Because the waiter was too fast, Sumo had no choice but to raise her eyebrows and retreat again. However, the waiter's third punch arrived. In fact, the waiter's move was extremely simple, or it could be said that there was no move at all. It was fast. Sky Cannon. However, when facing Sumo, he had the advantage of realm. Sumo couldn't use his magic treasures, nor could he use his puppets. This almost killed Sumo's biggest advantage, and it was also Sumo's most commonly used fighting style. At this moment, Sumo was completely at a disadvantage and could only evade. The waiter did not give her any chance. One punch after another, without the slightest hesitation. In the beginning, Sumo was still hoping that the waiter would take a breather. In this way, he could use spells to restrain the fist technique. However, after 5 punches, the waiter's speed not only did not slow down, but also became faster. Sumo's movement technique was somewhat slow. At this moment, although Sumo was not injured, she felt a slight pain in her body. This was not the way to go. The current Sumo was indeed in a somewhat difficult situation. In fact, Sumo was not afraid of deity tribulation cultivators. Unfortunately, Miao Long did not let her use the puppets. Miao Longer, who was watching from the side, could not help but shake his head and sigh in his heart. In daily battles, Sumo relies too much on the puppets. Her adaptability is too poor. Fortunately, I found the waiter today. If I asked the current manager of the Drunken Immortal restaurant to come, I reckon he could beat Sumo with one move. At this moment, Sumo was somewhat anxious. The 7th punch. The waiter's 7th punch. The waiter was so excited that he could not wait to punch Sumo to the ground so that he could get the position of a small manager. Therefore, the more he fought, the more courageous he became. Sumo once again used all her strength to take a step back. Then, he no longer wanted to form hand seals. Instead, his body suddenly emitted a golden light. Whoosh! As the golden light appeared, Sumo looked as if she was wearing an armor. Oh! Miao Long who originally felt that the fight was somewhat dull, finally became spirited. Sumo was going to fight back. Just now, She thought that Sumo was going to be knocked down with one punch. Sumo faced the wind generated by the waiter's fist and suddenly raised his right fist. Instantly, several golden dragons entwined around his right arm, stirring up a hurricane, and went straight for the waiter's fist. Sacred Ancestor Golden Dragon Fist. Sumo had not used the 8th Senior Brother's inheritance for a long time, and it could even be said that it was somewhat neglected. This was a real head-on confrontation. Miao Long Er's eyes lit up. Sumo actually had such a fist technique. Chapter 307. Boom, boom. The waiter's fist collided with Sumo's. In an instant, spiritual light scattered in all directions and energy surged. An energy vortex suddenly formed in the entire arena. At the same time, the waiter and Sumo quickly retreated. This was the first time the waiter had retreated since the start of the competition. That was because he had a whole new level of respect for Sumo after seeing that punch. It should be noted that Sumo was only at the early stage of the deity tribulation, which was 2 levels lower than him. An ordinary cultivator would definitely not dare to take his punch head-on. Little brother Su, not bad. The waiter looked at Sumo and smiled honestly. It was obvious that the waiter had not used his full strength. The punches just now seemed sharp, but he had held back a lot. Little brother waiter, again. The Sacred Wheel Golden Dragon Fist was an inheritance that Sumo had inherited from her 8th senior brother, Han Tion. It was said that the Sacred Wheel Patriarch had created this fist technique, but that might not be the case after careful consideration. That was because the Sacred Wheel Patriarch's cultivation base at the great perfection of the soul transformation realm was probably not enough to create such a fist technique. Sumo rarely used the Sacred Wheel Golden Dragon Fist in normal battles, because she had puppets to protect her. Today, she had met this waiter who was her opponent. For a moment, Sumo was a little excited. Fortunately, she would practice the Sacred Wheel Golden Dragon Fist today and see if she could resist this waiter. After all, this was not a life-and-death battle, so it was a good opportunity for Sumo to practice. That seemed to be Miao Long Er's goal. Okay, the waiter did not say much. Whoosh, the waiter took a step forward. This time, he did not pursue speed. Instead, he threw a punch forward at an extremely slow speed. From the outside, it looked like a rocket cannon. However, Sumo could clearly feel something different. That was because the power of this punch was more concentrated. The waiter's fist shone faintly, and a fist shadow even appeared in front of his fist. That was definitely not an ordinary sky soaring cannon. The power of the divine tribulation filled his entire body. This punch could definitely collapse a mountain and reverse the flow of rivers. When Sumo saw this, she secretly activated the everlasting incantation. In an instant, the golden light around him soared again. All the strength in his body was concentrated in his right arm. The golden dragon reappeared on his right arm. Holy Wheel Golden Dragon Fist. Each punch was stronger than the previous. The power it needed was constantly increasing. Therefore, back then, Han Tion would usually only throw 4 punches. The founding master of the Holy Wheel could throw 13 punches, and Sumo still didn't know where her limit was. However, he poured more than half of his strength into his fist, skipping the few punches that should have been gradual in theory. Deity Tribulation Cultivator. Sumo's power far surpassed that of Han Tion and even the Holy Wheel Patriarch. His first punch was probably equivalent to the power of the founder of the Holy Wheel. Hoo-woo. At this moment, Sumo and the waiter's fists filled the entire arena. The power of the divine tribulation rippled like the sea. However, the arena was protected by an enchantment, so there was no problem. Miao Long who was standing not far away, looked calm. The power of the divine tribulation automatically dispersed when it was 7 or 8 feet away from Miao Long It couldn't cause any harm to him. She had completed the break world. The difference between Su Mo and the waiter and her was like heaven and earth. Boom! Crack! Boom! In the blink of an eye, the waiter and Su Mo had already exchanged 3 blows. Sumo's punches were fiercer and fiercer, and the power kept increasing. The sky was full of golden light, and the spirit chi was like the wind, which was quite imposing. Miao Long looked at Sumo's punches with interest and couldn't help but nod. At the same time, she thought to herself, this punching skill is definitely not from the White Bone Land. Unfortunately, Sumo still hadn't used it to its fullest. Windwheel Bloodline. Windwheel World. Miao Long remembered some things about Sumo. He looked calm, but he was thinking. As a cultivator at the peak of the late stage of the breaking world, Miao Long knew more than Guan Xiong. Outside the Pure Land, there was a world called Windwheel. It was an existence of a higher level than the Pure Land. Boom! Boom! At that moment, Sumo and the waiter exchanged 2 more punches. Sumo had already made 6 punches. The Holy Wheel Golden Dragon Fist was very powerful. However, it consumed a lot of energy. However, there was one thing that Sumo was stronger than most cultivators. As long as it wasn't too much of a burden, her everlasting spell could provide endless, everlasting chi. In other words, although Sumo had made 6 punches, the spirit chi in her body didn't decrease. At that moment, the waiter also realized this. Miao Long also saw the clues. Sumo had a special technique. What a powerful chi cultivation method. Miao Long frowned, because even she couldn't do it. Of course, it was easy for her to beat Sumo, but it was because of her powerful cultivation, not because of her endless power. You have treasures, but you don't know it. Miao Long shook his head and smiled bitterly. Waiter, if you use your real power and hold back, you will definitely lose. The aura in Sumo's body is inexhaustible. You can't rely on him. Miao Long shouted at the waiter with a smile. Then don't even think about being a steward. In fact, even without Sumo's words, the waiter had sensed everything. Just now, Miao Long had ordered that she would be responsible for his death. However, the waiter and Sumo were just having a competition. There was no enmity between them. Plus, Sumo could make Miao Long accompany her. She was not an ordinary person. Therefore, the waiter had been holding back. He was really afraid that he would seriously injure Sumo, which would be bad. However, now it seemed that Sumo's battle strength was very good. It could be seen from the continuous flow of spiritual power. Brother Su, be careful, the waiter reminded. Looking again, white light suddenly appeared on the waiter's body, and the white light instantly turned into mist. The temperature of the whole square suddenly dropped. The power of the late stage of God, tribulation, finally burst out from the waiter's body. The gap between the early stage of God tribulation and the late stage of God tribulation was definitely not small. At that moment, Sumo suddenly felt that the waiter's aura was completely different. She even felt a little oppressed. Falling ice flower. That was an extremely powerful magic art. The waiter took a step forward and punched out fiercely. This punch was very ordinary and did not even have a fist wind. However, the waiter's fist almost turned into ice white. It was not like a human fist, but an ice fist. Cold air. The bone-piercing cold air came straight through the void. Sumo even felt a trace of cold air under her feet. This punch of the waiter was completely different from before. Boom! However, Sumo still instinctively punched out a golden dragon fist. This was already Sumo's 7th punch. If not for the barrier, this punch of Sumo was enough to roll up the airflow within a radius of hundreds of feet. The golden dragon roared and went straight to the waiter. Boom! This sound was not as loud as the previous one. However, suddenly, Sumo's expression changed slightly. This was because he and the waiter had suddenly separated. On the surface, they were evenly matched. However, Sumo felt that half of her body was slightly numb. A cold air went straight into her meridians. Originally, Sumo thought that this cold air could be dispersed as long as it did not dry up. However, when Sumo circulated the immortal chi, she felt slightly condensed. That cold air could not be dispersed at all. Not good, Sumo shouted. However, it was already too late, because the waiter's second punch had already arrived, and it even carried a sky full of wind and snow. Miao Long let out a bitter smile and muttered to himself, "You can't even withstand the slightest bit of ancient vast ocean flow. Sumo, you lose." In a hurry, Sumo could only instinctively cast a defensive technique. At the same time, he punched out the 8th time. That was Sumo's full strength. Crack! The defense broke. Boom! The waiter's fist and Sumo's fist collided firmly. The spiritual energy storm swept over a radius of more than 10 feet. However, this time, the waiter did not move at all. Looking again, Sumo was sent flying more than 10 feet away and fell to the ground with a bang. Wah! Sumo's face turned pale, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. Immortal bone. A strange look flashed in the waiter's eyes. Because under his fist technique, Sumo's right arm did not break, but his own arm was slightly stinging. Chapter 308. Sumo spat out a mouthful of blood. Brother Su, thank you for letting me win. I'm sorry. The waiter smiled apologetically. He did not make another move, nor did he go over to help Sumo. Otherwise, it would only make things more difficult for Sumo. Sumo had already lost. After all, this was not a life-and-death battle. Brother waiter, I lost. Sumo stood up, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and smiled bitterly. He was indeed not his opponent. Sumo spat out a mouthful of blood. Although she had suffered internal injuries, it was not too serious. However, for Sumo, who possessed the unwithering chi and unwithering bones, to be injured was enough to show that the waiter's fist technique was extremely powerful. Especially the ice attribute in the waiter's fist technique, it was even more strange. That cold air actually caused Sumo's unwithering chi to stagnate for a moment, and it was difficult to continue. Of course, the two of them were just competing, so they stopped there. If it was a life-and-death battle, Sumo naturally had many tricks up her sleeves, and she might not lose. However, if it was a life-and-death battle, the waiter might not necessarily be without other skills. Not bad. Waiter. At this moment, Miao Long took a few steps forward, looked at the waiter, and nodded slightly. The only flaw is that your attack is a little light. I already said that if you kill him, it's on me. Even if you don't kill him, you can still severely injure him. His current injury is a little light. The waiter scratched his head and smiled foolishly. Sumo, on the other hand, had an awkward expression. Spitting out blood, this was still not enough. Waiter, there's nothing for you to do here. You go. I mean what I say. Tomorrow, you will be a small manager of the Drunken Immortal restaurant. I have already sent a message to Old Bai. Miao Long said, Thank you, eldest miss. The waiter's face was full of smiles, and then he said to Sumo, Brother Su, when you are free, come to the Drunken Immortal restaurant for a drink. It's my treat. Today, thanks to you and eldest Mississippi. This humble one will take his leave. Sumo smiled bitterly and nodded. When he looked again, the waiter bowed slightly and disappeared in an instant. A deity tribulation cultivator had already come and gone without a trace. The waiter was in the northern Chill City, but he was just the waiter. If he had been on the Bone Continent, he would have been able to sweep away everything in his path. Even on the Chaotic Gods continent, he would have been a top-notch expert. What do you think? After the waiter left, Miao Longer looked at Sumo and said, I'm fine. Sumo smiled and patted her chest. Then he took a pill to heal his internal injuries. This kind of injury was nothing to him. Actually, if you were to use other methods, that little fool would not be your opponent. That's because he only specializes in one type of fist technique. Miao Long faintly smiled. However, Sumo, you should understand that the most important thing for a cultivator is to cultivate themselves. If I'm not wrong, your chi refinement technique is very special. It's almost endless. Your bones seem to have been tempered in a special way, giving you a body that is definitely comparable to an undead realm cultivator. Otherwise, Little Fool's attack just now would have definitely broken your right arm. Your right arm is fine, but Little Fool was hit by a hidden force. Among the 4 stages of cultivation in the hidden world, your body condition can be said to be invincible. Sumo listened quietly. What Miao Long said was actually correct. His bone unwithered technique seemed to be a top-notch technique even now. His body and immortal bones were also unparalleled. But, Sumo, Miao Long changed the topic. You haven't used all of your advantages yet. That day, when you were facing 3 undead realm cultivators, you were actually a bit scared. You only thought about using puppets, spirit beasts, or running away. 3 undead realm cultivators. Why didn't you run away? Sumo cursed in her heart. I know my own strength. No matter how strong my body is, I can't withstand the attacks of undead realm cultivators, right? Hee. Miaolong Air seemed to have guessed what Sumo was thinking. He couldn't help but smile. The undead realm and the deity tribulation realm in the hidden world are really different. In theory, undead realm cultivators can absolutely suppress deity tribulation realm cultivators. Sumo nodded slightly. If they couldn't suppress them, what was the point of having different levels? But there are always some cultivators who are not in theory. Miaolong Air smiled. Sumo, do you believe me? In the hidden world, I was in the so-called early-stage deity tribulation realm, and I killed more than one undead realm cultivator. Why did you kill them? Sumo was shocked. Techniques. I didn't use treasures or external objects. Miaolong Air's tone was full of pride. Sumo frowned. Of course, he believed what Miaolong Air said. It was pointless to lie to someone at the peak of Breaking World. Sumo, you should remember that all treasures and puppets are just auxiliary methods. You should dig out your inner potential. That way, you will be stronger and safer. I'm not saying that treasures and puppets aren't important. I'm saying that your own level, advantages, and techniques are the foundation of everything. Is the waiter's fist technique powerful? Miaolong Air asked. Very powerful. Sumo nodded. His fist technique is infused with sorcery. That special cold air froze the undead chi in my body. It prevented my last punch from displaying its power. Undead chi. That's a good name. Miaolong Air didn't really care about Sumo's techniques. In her opinion, all the techniques she practiced were the best in the world. Actually, your fist technique just now could totally defeat Little Fool. However, you don't know how to use your power. Sumo, the waiter's cold ice technique, is just a little bit. It isn't even a complete technique. A little bit? It isn't a complete technique? Sumo couldn't help but smile. A little bit could kill a deity tribulation expert? You don't believe me? Miaolong Air looked at Sumo and smiled. Then, Miaolong Air's body flashed with a mysterious light. Her level suddenly started to drop. World Breaker, Deity Burial, Undead, Early Deity Tribulation. In the end, Miaolong Air suppressed his level to the same level as Sumo. Sumo was slightly stunned. She didn't know what Miaolong Air was going to do. Ice Burial. Miaolong Air made a hand seal and lightly shouted. Whoosh! A gust of wind suddenly rose in the square. Sumo instantly shivered, because it was too cold. It was too cold for a deity tribulation cultivator. Looking again, the entire training field had instantly turned into an ice cave. Sumo looked around. The whole barrier had completely turned into ice. It wasn't an ordinary cold air. That kind of cold air went straight to the bone and could freeze the soul. Sumo's Dan C suddenly shook. His white bone unwither technique was activated automatically. However, the speed was extremely slow, as if he would be frozen at any time. At this moment, Miaolong Air's body was covered with a faint white mist. He looked like an ice goddess. Sumo, you're really good. Miaolong Air praised sincerely. My ice burial technique is an ancient inheritance from another world. Although I'm only using the power of a deity tribulation, it's enough to kill you instantly. In the past, when I used this technique, even a deity tribulation expert in the late stage would be frozen. However, you're still safe for the time being. Sumo groaned inwardly when he heard this. At this moment, Sumo's body was stiff. He could barely speak. Luckily, Miaolong Air knew that Sumo wouldn't be able to hold on for long. He smiled faintly and stopped the technique. Whoosh! The ice and snow disappeared. Sumo's face turned pale and red. Even though the technique had disappeared, he still felt a chill in his heart. Miaolong Air's technique was really too powerful. Compared to my technique just now, the waiter's technique can only be considered superficial, right? Miaolong Air said. Yes. Sumo nodded. Eldest Miss, you said that your technique came from an ancient inheritance from another world. Guanxiong also said that you and the City Lord aren't from the Pure Land world. May I ask, which world are you from? Which world? Miao Long Air was a little confused after hearing this. Sumo, we're from the Three Realms. Or, according to the Izong world, we're from the Galaxy world. Three Realms, Galaxy? Sumo's heart shook. Chapter 309. Three Realms? Galaxy? Miao Long Er's words made Sumo's heart skip a beat. That was because he remembered the mediocre spiritual summoning technique he had been practicing, Pure Land Galaxy. The introduction of the Pure Land Galaxy had been imprinted in Sumo's mind. In the vast universe, there are thousands of worlds. Above the bones, there are sacred lotuses. How many dust are there in one place? Outside the Pure Land, there is the reincarnation of the galaxy. After thousands of years of tribulations, it is far away. However, this magical power can achieve it. It can connect with one's life and borrow the light of eternal life. Could the galaxy here be the galaxy world that Miao Long had mentioned? However, the spiritual summoning technique in the five wheels could connect to the outside of the Pure Land? Sumo was confused. At this moment, Miao Long had a complicated expression when he mentioned the Three Realms. He did not notice Sumo's expression. Miss, is the galaxy world far away? How many powerful cultivators are there? What is the relationship between the Pure Land and the galaxy world? Sumo asked. Of course it is. Miao Long nodded with a sad expression. Unfortunately, the Three Realms no longer exist. The galaxy world has already been destroyed. Miao Long ignored the other two questions of Sumo and muttered to himself, if it wasn't for Master, I would have died in the galaxy world. Alas, how can there be eternal life? Miao Long let out a long sigh and forcefully suppressed his complicated feelings. Sumo frowned and did not ask any more questions. That was because he did not understand what Miao Long was saying. However, he had not practiced the Pure Land Galaxy technique for a long time. Perhaps there would be an answer in that technique. All right, Sumo. Miao Long took a deep breath and adjusted his mood. All of this has nothing to do with you for now. It is not something you can understand. Today, I just want you to understand. You have to cultivate your inheritance and techniques to the extreme. You have to master them and use them properly. Then, your combat power will be greatly improved. Do you understand? That little fool's fist was straightforward and did not have many moves. However, it was focused on one thing. This was the reason why it was so powerful when it was slightly combined with Dharma spells. For now, you don't need to practice any new spells. The potential of your spells is more than enough for you to cultivate. Sumo understands. Sumo replied. Miao Long nodded again. That's good. I've already left your mark on this training field. You may come and go as you please. Today, you will comprehend and cultivate on your own. I still have something to do, so I won't stay here to accompany you. Later, I will send someone to the reflection house to deliver the ingredients for the soul-preserving pill to you. How many days do you need to concoct pills? A few days. Sumo was slightly taken aback. He thought to himself, I don't need a few days. As long as the medicinal ingredients are prepared, the formula will be correct. It will be done tonight. 3 days. Sumo didn't dare to speak too fast. However, even then, Miao Long still took a deep glance at Sumo and was slightly speechless. This was because it would normally take at least 9 days to refine a soul-preserving pill. This guy actually said 3 days? That soul-preserving pill is for your own use. You must not use it. It's better to be slow than to make it of high quality. Miao Long said snappily. Eldest Miss, don't worry. Good. Don't be lazy. Don't go back until winter. Everything in the training field can be used. Don't worry about damage. I want to see your progress in 3 days. Then, with the soul-preserving pill, I can help you absorb the spiritual energy in your body. You will at least enter the late stage of the deity tribulation realm. Okay. Thank you, eldest miss. Sumo expressed her gratitude again. Miao Long nodded and didn't say anything else. He turned around and disappeared. Only Sumo was left in the training field. He couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. It was obvious that the mention of the three realms had affected Miao Long's mood a little. The three realms? The Star River. There were too many things that Sumo didn't know. At present, only by improving herself could she know more things and solve more problems. Therefore, after Miao Long left, Sumo sat cross-legged on the training field and started to circulate the everlasting secret to regulate her breathing. After all, Sumo was injured just now. The power of the elixir gradually spread. More than 2 hours later, Sumo felt refreshed. Basically, there were no major problems. At the same time, outside the training field, it was summer. The 4 seasons had changed in one day. It was indeed a mysterious day in the northern chill city. However, there was a barrier in the training field. Sumo could only look up and see a slight change in the weather, but she didn't feel anything else. After adjusting her body, Sumo began to think about what kind of spell she should focus on. After all, she knew a lot of spells. According to what Miao Long was said during the fight just now, Sumo quickly decided to continue to practice her Golden Dragon Holy Wheel Fist. The waiter's fist technique had inspired her a lot. In fact, with Sumo's condition, she should really use this fierce fist technique to the extreme. She should let the Golden Dragon Holy Wheel Fist unleash its full power and integrate other spells into it. That way, Sumo could use her super strong body to fight against cultivators who were stronger than her. She couldn't kill cultivators with her deity's tribulation body. Sumo thought about it and felt that it was indeed not something that was out of reach. Miao Long had done it. Of course, Miao Long had a rebirth state master. Sumo could only rely on himself for now. However, Sumo believed that he could do it too. After all, he had many secrets and opportunities. Sumo calmed down and focused on practicing the Golden Dragon Holy Wheel Fist. The Golden Dragon Holy Wheel Fist was not a difficult fist technique. With the 8th senior brother's inheritance, Sumo had no problem understanding the fist technique. However, he didn't practice it often, so he couldn't use it freely. In fact, other than the white bone skeleton spell, Sumo's other spells were not proficient. That was because he advanced too quickly. His spells couldn't keep up with his level. If they were at the same level, Han Tion's Golden Dragon Holy Wheel Fist would definitely be better than Sumo's. This was because Han Tion specialized in this fist technique, just like the waiter. Sumo naturally understood this. Therefore, what he needed to do now was to practice the spells that could make use of his advantages. After looking at the training field, Sumo stood up and walked towards a fake mountain in the field. The fake mountain was at the northeast corner of the training field. It was more than 100 feet tall and had a diameter of 7 to 8 feet. However, it wasn't a regular circle. Sumo went forward and touched it, but he couldn't feel what it was made of. It wasn't gold or jade, and it was ice cold all over. Perhaps it was a special kind of cold stone. Sumo wanted to test its hardness. With a thought, he held the broken bamboo pole in his hand. Sumo used half of his strength and pointed at the fake mountain. Clang sparks flew everywhere. Sumo's arm shook slightly, but the fake mountain was undamaged. Oh, Sumo smiled faintly. It seemed that this fake mountain was quite sturdy. Thinking of this, he increased his strength. He poured all of his strength into the bamboo pole. The broken bamboo pole was like a spear and stabbed at the fake mountain. Sumo had a magic weapon in his hand. How could its power be ordinary? This time, if an undying intermediate stage cultivator didn't resist, he could be killed with just his physical body. Clang, 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 however, sparks still flew everywhere. The broken bamboo pole was bounced up. Huh. Sumo raised his eyebrows. When he made his second move, he saw that there were many traces of punches and kicks on the rockery. In the deepest part, there was a complete fist print more than 3 inches deep into the rockery. Sumo sucked in a breath of cold air. Who could have that kind of fist strength? It was far better than holding a magic weapon. In front of such a fist, magic weapons seemed to lose their meaning. Thinking of this, Sumo put away the bamboo pole. Boom! Sumo suddenly raised his right arm, silently activated the Holy Wheel Golden Dragon skill, and then raised his momentum to the strongest. The undying chi rolled like waves. His whole body was covered in golden light. and he punched straight at the fake mountain. Sumo also wanted to leave a fist mark. Chapter 310. Boom! Boom! Sumo's first golden dragon, Saint Wheel fist landed on the fake mountain. Even the broken bamboo pole couldn't do anything to the fake mountain, so Sumo's punch naturally didn't work. However, this was within Sumo's expectations. Leaving a mark on the fake mountain wasn't Sumo's real goal. He wanted to see the true power of the golden dragon Saint Wheel fist. Boom! 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 Sumo didn't stop and continued to punch at an extremely fast speed. The specialty of the golden dragon Saint Wheel fist was that each punch was stronger and more ferocious than the last. Of course, the amount of spiritual energy consumed by each punch increased by several folds. Therefore, back then, Han Tian could only throw out 4 punches when he was at the peak of Foundation establishment. Back then, Han Tian had never used the 5th fist, and Sumo's cultivation was far higher than Han Tian's. In one breath, Sumo punched 7 times. His punches were far stronger than Han Tian's. The sky was filled with golden light and the roars of dragons and tigers. The entire training field was filled with the wind from his punches. Sumo's aura continued to rise. Although he punched 7 times, Sumo's Dan Si didn't show any signs of depletion. This was because his unwithering chi was almost endless. After all, the golden dragon Saint Wheel fist couldn't drain all of his spiritual energy at once. Whoosh! Boom! Sumo continued to improve himself. The golden light on his body was already glaring and then poured into his arms. In fact, each punch was a process of practice. Sumo's exertion became more and more skillful. He had a feeling that each of his punches contained the ultimate power. It wasn't just the superposition of the golden dragon Saint Wheel fist, it was also the result of him using his spiritual energy. However, this wasn't enough. Sumo's goal was to make his first punch reach the pinnacle. Or, within 3 punches, Sumo had to unleash his abilities to the extreme, because he understood that a real opponent wouldn't give him too many chances to punch. 3 punches, and they had to be quick. If he couldn't hit his opponent, there was almost no hope. A real battle couldn't be like today's duel between him and Xiao Chun, where they exchanged punches. Fast and ferocious. This was the essence of the Holy Wheel Golden Dragon Fist. However, whether it was Han Tian or the founding ancestor, they needed a gradual process. Now, Sumo was pursuing this gradual process as fast as possible. In the blink of an eye, the might of the Holy Wheel Golden Dragon Fist was raised to the limit. In theory, this was unrealistic. Because you need to mobilize more spiritual power, it's very difficult to continue. However, Sumo had the unwithering bone technique. In a way, Sumo's spiritual power was limitless. As long as her Dan Si was not completely exhausted, Sumo's spiritual aura would be endless. Whoosh, boom! Sumo pondered in his heart as he bombarded outwards. He wanted to see his limit. At this point, he had already thrown 14 punches. This number of punches had already surpassed that of the founding master of the Holy Wheel. However, Sumo didn't seem tired at all. This was his greatest source of confidence. And this punch had already absorbed close to a quarter of Sumo's God's tribulation power. If it were other cultivators, they would at most be able to throw 1 more punch, because the power needed for the next punch would double again. Coupled with the previous consumption, an ordinary cultivator was already at his limit. Because one couldn't use up all the spiritual power in their body, that would really mean death. But Sumo was different. After the 14th punch, his Dan Si was still full. His spiritual aura was not exhausted. Sumo's lips curled up. He could throw at least 2 more punches. Don't underestimate these 2 punches, because the power of the Holy Wheel Golden Dragon Fist would increase exponentially the more powerful it was. The difference of 1 punch was like the difference between heaven and earth, let alone 2 punches. Sumo's aura was still rising. Although there were no traces left on the rockery, Sumo believed that he could definitely do it. Whoosh, the 15th punch. The golden light was like a river rushing straight to the 9 heavens, huge waves crashing onto the shore. Boom, boom. His voice echoed throughout the entire training field. The sound waves could injure cultivators below the nascent soul level. However, the rockery was still as stable as Mount Tai, and there was no trace of it. That punch just now had consumed nearly half of his spiritual aura. Sumo raised his eyebrows. His spiritual aura was rapidly recovering. He could still throw another punch, and this punch would be his full strength. It was different from the so-called 70% or 10% of one's strength, because sometimes one could throw 70% or 10% of one's strength several times in a row. However, the Holy Wheel Golden Dragon Fist extracted spiritual power in one go. The 16th punch would directly extract the spiritual power in Sumo's Dansi. At this time, Sumo's early stage divine tribulation cultivation was only enough for one punch. This punch was Sumo's strongest punch at the moment. Whoosh! Sumo adjusted his breathing. Of course, this was just a practice, and Sumo wouldn't have such a chance in a real fight. The golden light on Sumo's body reached its peak. Sumo's whole body was wrapped in golden flames, like a golden armored god. It was far better than when he fought with the waiter just now, because the waiter didn't give Sumo the chance to use this power. At this time, Sumo had time to adjust his state to the best. He believed that the power of this punch was even greater than the power he had exerted with the bamboo pole just now. It exploded in an instant. He shouted. Sumo's clothes fluttered, and his long hair flew. Boom! The 16th punch. A golden light hit the rockery. In an instant, the golden light shot everywhere, and the fire collapsed. Sumo felt a sharp pain in his right arm. If he didn't have the immortal bone, his bone would definitely be broken. After all, no one would use their fist to hit an iron wall. However, Sumo needed this to practice. After this punch, Sumo's face was slightly pale, and he was slightly out of breath, because the spiritual energy in his Dan-Si was almost exhausted. But soon, his face returned to normal. The immortal bone immediately began to replenish. The blue skull on the Nine Dragons Heaven platform also emitted a faint light. 16 punches was Sumo's limit. If he punched again, Sumo's spiritual energy would be directly sucked dry, and the immortal bone would not be able to continue. That would definitely suck out his meridians and blood, and he would be seriously injured. Sumo wouldn't use such a big move unless he had to. When he looked again, there was finally a shallow mark left on the rockery. Well, Sumo let out a long breath. This was the first time he had punched 16 times since he inherited the Golden Dragon Fist. In a few days, he should fight with the waiter again. However, how could he make the power of his first punch reach the state of the 16th? This was a problem he needed to solve, because in a real fight, one couldn't have the opportunity to accumulate the power of the 16th punch. Within 3 punches, he had to explode. Just now, he had already tried the battle between Sumo and the waiter. However, the power at the beginning was at most equivalent to the power of his 5th or 6th punch. This was still far from what he wanted. However, after all, it was only the first day he started to practice, so he was not in a hurry. Also, what kind of spell was Sumo going to fuse with it? This was also the question he was thinking about. The waiter's last punch had defeated him in this way. The waiter's spell contained the extreme Yin and extreme cold Qi. Could he do the opposite? An idea flashed in Sumo's mind, because he really knew a fire will spell. Chapter 3:11. Northern Cold City, late winter. Sumo finished her day's cultivation and returned to the Reflection Vegetarian House. Guanxiong naturally came back early. He felt good after a day's stroll. The guy was sitting in the courtyard eating and drinking. When he saw Sumo come back, he said lazily, "Why are you back so late? I heard that you were brought to cultivate by Mississippi. Did she beat you up?" Hee. Sumo sat opposite Guanxiong and picked up a chicken leg. "You're quite well informed. But I wasn't beaten up by Mississippi. You're treated well. Miss beat you up whenever she wants." This chicken tastes good." Sumo poured herself another cup of wine. She consumed a lot today and couldn't help but have a big appetite. Hee. Guanxiong looked at Sumo and laughed. "Delicious, right? This is the Drunken Immortal restaurant's wine and dishes. Sumo, tell me the truth. You really weren't beaten up by Miss? I heard that the shop's waiter went to the training field. You were beaten until you vomited blood. With Miss Temper, she would have run away if she didn't beat you up. Guan Xiong's face was full of expectation. He hoped that others could also be beaten up. This way, he would feel more balanced. Hee hee, damn fatty, you should just give up. Miss really didn't beat me up. Not only did she not beat me up, she even taught me with great care. Don't think that I lost today. In a few days, my cultivation will soar. At that time, why don't you practice with me? Sumo said while eating. Oomph, in your dreams. Guan Xiong was very disappointed. I'm at the undead realm. You're at the deity tribulation realm. We're not on the same level. Guan Xiong was already full and sat in the courtyard to wait for Sumo. At this moment, he leaned back slightly and patted his stomach with a proud look. If you want to beat me, you'll have to wait for a few decades. Wait and see. Sumo stopped bickering with Guan Xiong and just ate and drank. Speaking of which, the Drunken Immortal restaurant's cooking was really good. Sumo spent the entire day practicing the Holy Wheel Golden Dragon Fist. He brought out the vigor he had when he was cultivating. In fact, if it wasn't for the fact that he had to come back to concoct pills, Sumo didn't even plan on coming back. Cultivation was naturally boring, especially for a fist technique like the Holy Wheel Golden Dragon Fist. You might have to punch tens of thousands of times to get the punch you want. However, Sumo was willing to endure hardship and enjoyed it. At the end of the day, he was able to leave a mark on the fake mountain after his 15th punch. Moreover, his attempt to fuse spells into his fist technique could be considered a success. Fire Wheel spell, Fire Wheel incantation. Although it was only a nascent soul level spell, and it was incomparable to Miao Long Er's ice burial technique, it was enough for Sumo to try it out. When the Fire Wheel technique was attached to the Golden Dragon Sacred Wheel Fist, there was no conflict at all, and it could even be said to be a perfect combination. Now, not only was his Golden Dragon Fist powerful, they were also imbued with scorching heat waves. Sumo believed that as long as he could obtain a higher level spell and fuse it into his Golden Dragon Fists, his battle prowess would be greatly enhanced. However, Sumo didn't tell Guan Xiong about this, because he wanted to give Guan Xiong a surprise, to improve as fast as possible and then beat him up. Guan Xiong, who was in the undead realm, was really asking for a beating. Sumo didn't say anything, and Guan Xiong also felt bored. At this time, someone came from the void. It was a 13 or 14-year-old boy with delicate features dressed like a medicine boy. His cultivation was in the late stage of the soul transformation realm. A medicine boy from the Elixir Pavilion? Guan Xiong was stunned. Why is he here? Hello, big brother Guan. The medicine boy landed in the courtyard and smiled at Guan Xiong. Medicine boy, why are you here? Guan Xiong asked. Under the orders of the shopkeeper, I'm here to deliver medicine to young Master Su. As he spoke, the medicine boy untied a storage bag from his waist and handed it to Sumo. Young Master Su, our shopkeeper said that the medicine inside is enough to refine 2 soul-preserving pills. However, please be careful, young Master Su. These medicinal herbs are worth a lot. Also, the pill recipe is inside. Sumo didn't know the medicine boy, but she knew that it was Miao Longer's arrangement. Thank you. Thank you. Please convey my thanks to your shopkeeper. Young Master Su, you're welcome. The medicine boy didn't say anything else. After delivering the medicine, he cupped his hands at Guan Xiong and Sumo and left. Soul-preserving pills? Guan Xiong's small eyes rolled. This was arranged by Miss, right? Soul-preserving pills. Sumo, why are you refining soul-preserving pills? Are you going to break through? I'm preparing to beat you up, so that you don't get too cocky. Sumo ignored Guan Xiong and rushed to her room with the pills. The door closed and opened again. Sumo poked her head out. Damn fatty, I need to refine pills for the next 3 days. Don't disturb me if there's nothing. You know, if I'm disturbed during pill refinement, I can make bad pills or dead pills. Miss asked me to refine soul-preserving pills. If there's a problem, bang, Sumo closed the door. Bullshit. Who are you trying to scare? Guan Xiong curled his lips. The third brother of the Wheel of Wind Wheel, Hua Ke, is a miracle doctor, and the sixth brother, Lu Tianzhan, is a master blacksmith. If you can't refine pills after receiving two great inheritances, you'd be better off dead. However, I don't believe that you can refine soul-preserving pills in 3 days. Guanxiong knew Sumo's abilities better than Miao Long. However, the time needed to refine pills was usually fixed. Even if you're a great alchemist, you can't just speed up, right? Guanxiong muttered to himself, but he didn't dare to disturb Sumo, so he stayed far away. Guanxiong naturally understood the rules of pill refinement. More importantly, he was afraid that if Sumo didn't succeed, she would blame it on him. If that happened, Miao Long would hang him up and beat him. Guanxiong felt pain just thinking about it, because he had really been hung up and beaten before. Of course, Sumo didn't know that Guanxiong was blindly thinking. She was mainly afraid that Guanxiong would see her soul-preserving cauldron. That would be hard to explain. After entering the house, Sumo laid down a barrier. Then, she sat cross-legged on the ground, took out the broken copper bowl, and turned it into the soul-preserving cauldron. Sumo hadn't taken out this soul-preserving cauldron for a long time, because she didn't need it. After entering the God Tribulation, ordinary spiritual food and spirit stones had little effect on Sumo. Therefore, Sumo rarely used the soul-preserving cauldron to enhance things. She still needed it when she was refining pills. However, Sumo's supply of elixirs over the years had been sufficient. He didn't have the recipe for God Tribulation or immortal pills. Taking out the soul-preserving cauldron, Sumo opened the storage bag that the medicine boy gave him. There were about 10 kinds of medicinal herbs inside, and there were 2 portions of each. There was also a jade slip. Sumo took out the jade slip, which was naturally the recipe for the soul-preserving pill. The soul-preserving pill, as the name suggested, was used to protect the soul. In fact, it was usually prepared by high-level cultivators to advance to the next realm. It needed a total of 37 kinds of medicinal herbs. Sumo knew 35 kinds of medicinal herbs, and she knew their properties very well. There were only 2 kinds of medicinal herbs. One was called the soul-stabilizing grass, and the other was called red bamboo fragrance. Sumo had never seen or heard of it. It wasn't in the inheritance of Windmill either. However, it didn't matter. As long as the recipe was correct, the soul-preserving cauldron was absolutely fine. That was something that Sumo had verified countless times. Although Sumo had a super high inheritance of alchemy, it was useless. Sumo matched the medicinal herbs one by one according to the recipe, and confirmed that there were no problems with the type and quantity. Then, Sumo placed the soul-preserving cauldron in the middle and began to put in the materials one by one according to the order of the pills. Chi, chi, chi. The soul-preserving cauldron was still the same soul-preserving cauldron. Any kind of material would produce white mist after it was put in, but it lingered at the mouth of the cauldron, condensing and not dispersing. Sumo didn't care about that, and just put in the materials according to the recipe. Alchemy didn't even need fire. Chi-chi sounds rang out continuously. After putting in the materials, Sumo waited quietly. In less than a quarter of an hour, the soul-preserving cauldron began to buzz. Sumo knew that she was about to succeed. Alchemy was the least challenging thing for Sumo. A moment later, the medicinal fragrance spread, and the inside of the cauldron glowed. The soul-preserving pill was ready. Chapter 312. It was about the size of soybean and glowed with a golden light. That soul-preserving pill really looked like a golden bean. Sumo picked up the pill. Although it was his first time seeing the soul-preserving pill, he didn't need to look at it carefully. This soul protection pill was definitely of superior quality. Its fragrance assailed the nostrils, and its color was restrained. Anything produced by the soul depository cauldron must be of high quality. This soul-preserving pill, Sumo directly put it into her own pill storage bottle. Just now, he had looked at the pill recipe and knew that the soul-preserving pill usually required 9 days to refine. Back then, it was indeed a little inappropriate for him to say 3 days. Now, of course, Sumo couldn't say that she had succeeded. Otherwise, it would be hard for him to explain himself, unless he already had the soul-preserving pill on him. Since there were 2 sets of ingredients, he would refine another one. That way, if he ate one, he would still have one left. The soul-preserving pill was a top-notch pill for the mortal realm. If he had one more, it would definitely come in handy when he attacked the undead realm. Sumo still had an immortal pill with her. In this way, he would basically have enough medicinal pills to break through to the undead realm. After making up her mind, Sumo did not hesitate and immediately started to refine the second soul-preserving pill. The steps were the same, the process was the same, and the result was the same. Soon, the second protection pill was ready. Sumo took out a jade bottle to hold the second pill. To Sumo, concocting pills was just a process. Just like that, the soul-preserving pill was refined without any difficulty. Thus, Sumo put away the soul depository cauldron. After resting for a while, Sumo recalled Miao Long, words today. She couldn't help but frown and ponder. 3 realms? Galaxy? The Milky Way world was destroyed long ago. How could there be immortality? Sumo recalled Miao Long words and felt that there was a lot of information. At this moment, Sumo recalled what Mu Jinghong had said before he died. Only if I die in your hands will you remember who I am. Sumo, I want to go home. I want to return to that sea of stars. I want to return to the planet that belongs to us. I want to sit under the plum tree with you. Those words had always been in the depths of Sumo's memory. He had never forgotten them. Star River, Star Sea? Could it be that Mu Jinghong also came from the 3 realms? Could it be that I'm from the 3 dimensions as well? Who am I? This was a question that she hadn't asked for a long time, and it made Sumo frown. Unfortunately, Mu Jinghong was dead, but Sumo couldn't remember who Mu Jinghong was. She also didn't know who she was. On that day, there was a demonic song, but after Sumo woke up, everything ceased to exist. Did he come from the same world as Mu Jinghong, Miao Longer, and the Northern Chill City Lord? Otherwise, Miao Long might have saved him because of his relationship with Guan Xiong, but he didn't have to follow the orders of the city lord to urge him to temper his magic. Yes, there was also Yi Wu Hui. Sumo's heart skipped a beat. This was because he had seen an existence as brilliant as the Milky Way in Ghastly Shadow's Heart Demon. And there was also a huge white bone flying over. The white bones resembled the White Bone Continent. Guan Xiong had already mentioned that the White Bone Continent was formed by a powerful being from another world. The so-called other world was perhaps the 3 realms. In that case, everything seemed to be connected. The White Bone Heart only recognized him. It seemed to be able to prove that he was from the 3 realms, or at least was related to the 3 realms. Everything was a bit messy, but Sumo still found some clues. However, it was all speculation. There was no real evidence. Sumo heaved a sigh. She needed to think about it carefully. It seemed that Miao Long wouldn't talk to her about the 3 realms for a while. Otherwise, she could have talked about it today. Guan Xiong didn't seem to know much. For now, it seemed that she could only raise her level and ask the so-called Northern Chill City Lord or Yi Wu Hui when she met him. However, Sumo could still try the Pure Land Galaxy spell. Back then, Sumo's level wasn't high enough, so she tried it twice. The first time, Sumo summoned a drop of water, and it was barely noticeable. The second time, Sumo summoned a purple pool, and a black light appeared in it. Unfortunately, the black light disappeared after flying a few hundred feet. Sumo only remembered that it was very dangerous. After that, Sumo was a bit disheartened during the 5 battles and didn't study the Pure Land Galaxy spell again. What would happen if she used the Pure Land Galaxy spell again when she was in the early stage of the Divine Tribulation? Sumo's heart was filled with enthusiasm. Perhaps there would be new discoveries. So, Sumo strengthened his enchantment. At the same time, he summoned 3 golden skeletons to protect him, just in case. Everything was ready. Sumo started to make a hand seal. Even though she hadn't used the Pure Land Galaxy spell for a long time, all the hand seals were still in her mind. The hand seal was completed. The power of the Divine Tribulation spread out. The previous 2 times and this time, it was absolutely incomparable. A divine tribulation cultivator was considered a grand cultivator in the entire Pure Land. The spirit summoning art was closely related to the level of the cultivator. The higher the level of the cultivator, the more powerful the spirit summoning art could be. In fact, the spirit summoning art was like a bridge between two worlds. Once you arrived in another world, how much you could bring out from that world depended on your ability. Sumo didn't make it to the end of the bridge the first time. She did make it to the end of the bridge the second time, but she didn't bring anything back. But it was different this time. The divine tribulation couldn't be compared to the intermediate stage of the core formation realm. Whoosh, whoosh, inside the enchantment, Sumo sat cross-legged. The three golden skeletons stood in a triangle. The entire room was big enough for Sumo to use. At this time, Sumo made a hand seal and closed his eyes. At the beginning, he still needed to use his immortal will. He calmed his mind and entered a meditative state. He meditated on the vast universe and the thousands of worlds. Sumo's immortal will seemed to be projected into the vast universe. Boundless, without a beginning and without an end. Sumo's heart felt like it was floating. There was nowhere for him to rely on. This feeling was very obvious the first two times. But this time it didn't last long. Among the thousands of stars and clouds, Sumo seemed to have found his direction. His immortal will quickly flew to the deepest part of the universe without any hesitation. Many worlds, many lives, they were like fleeting clouds. He had this feeling last time, but this time it was very clear. At that moment, Sumo even saw a few spaces that he once had memories of. In a trance, he seemed to see Peach Blossom Town and Lao Xuan too. But that moment was too fast. Everything was gone in a flash. Sumo didn't know how long he had walked or how far he had walked, but he didn't know exhaustion. This time, he didn't show any signs of spiritual energy exhaustion. The immortal chi was endless. The power of the divine tribulation was endless. Finally, he saw the dazzling star domain again. Countless stars were shining. Countless meteors were beautiful. It was peaceful and peaceful. Even the deepest part of the galaxy was singing. It was exactly the same as what Sumo saw last time. The three realms that Miao Long Air mentioned, the galaxy world. Sumo stopped at the periphery of the galaxy. An inexplicable feeling rose in his heart. He had that feeling last time, but this time it was even stronger. His soul, his love were all here. I'm back. The three realms galaxy. In Sumo's heart, there was a soul shouting at the top of its lungs. That was the world he lived for, the world he fought for. At that moment, Sumo, who was sitting cross-legged, didn't know that tears were rolling down from the corners of his eyes. Chapter 3:13. Pure Land Galaxy. Last time, Sumo's spirit stood on the periphery of this galaxy and observed everything. Now, with his divine tribulation realm cultivation base, Sumo's spirit could continue to fly into the galaxy. Sumo's speed was extremely fast. In fact, it was only Sumo's spirit that was flying. The galaxy looked incomparably brilliant from the outside, with endless brilliance. However, when Sumo walked into the galaxy, he instantly sensed the aura of death and desolation. The galaxy, which looked extremely beautiful from the outside, was actually a wasteland. Sumo's spirit couldn't help but be slightly startled. How could this be? In front of him was a boundless nothingness. All kinds of floating gravel continents, all kinds of broken fragments. That kind of feeling was somewhat similar to the sky ditch in the Pure Land world. The floating continents and fragments were scattered irregularly in the galaxy world. They were even flowing and constantly changing. At the same time, there were all kinds of residual energy fluctuations in the void. They formed a strange pattern. All kinds of vortexes, many black holes, and so on. It was a wonderful and broken space. Sumo couldn't tell what kind of feeling he was feeling, but there was always a kind of sadness in the depths of his soul. I must have been here. Sumo thought silently. Three realms, galaxy. This should be a broken space-time after a big explosion. The galaxy world was broken. Sumo remembered Miao Long, Er's words. At the same time, Sumo remembered the scene of a starry sky exploding in Ghost Shadow's heart demon. Those were naturally Yi Wuhui's memories. All of this seemed to be confirming something. Many people came from the galaxy world. This really was the galaxy world. Sumo could basically be sure. And the galaxy world should have experienced an unparalleled big explosion. However, what kind of power could destroy a world? Sumo, who was now only a deity tribulation cultivator, didn't dare to imagine that kind of power. At the same time, Sumo gradually felt the resistance in front of him was increasing. He still couldn't go deep into the galaxy. His divine tribulation power was constantly being extracted, and his Dan-Si could no longer maintain its fullness. In an instant, more than half of his Dan-Si had been consumed. No matter how much the unwithering incantation replenished it, it could not be filled immediately. The Milky Way was vast. At present, Sumo could only enter the relatively outer space of the Milky Way. There was nothing but darkness in the distance. The deathly stillness and desolation seemed to have intensified. Was there not a single life in the entire galaxy? This was a little unacceptable. At this moment, Sumo frowned slightly. This was because he suddenly saw many black flower petals floating in the air. Black rose petals? Sumo's spirit gently raised her hand. Many petals floated past Sumo's body. All the black petals instantly turned into ashes. The black mist slowly dispersed. Those black rose petals were exactly the same as the ones he saw in the ink lake of the Undying Kingdom. Sumo's heart skipped a beat. However, at this moment, the pressure on Sumo had reached a critical point. Summit, Sumo fiercely shouted. His main goal wasn't to spiritually wander into the galaxy, but to see if there was anything in the galaxy that could resonate with him. Hua. Sumo's spirit quickly retreated from the galaxy, as if it only took a single step. At this time, inside the room, a purple pool of water appeared in front of Sumo again, but this purple pool was even larger than before. Layers of ripples spread out. The purple light gently rippled. Several black lights swam in the deep pool like fish. Chi-chi-chi, chi-chi-chi. In an instant, 7 black lights flew out from the purple pool. However, this time, they were all blocked by Sumo's barrier, unable to fly away, nor did they dissipate. Sumo reached out and directly took the 7 black lights into her bosom. She couldn't help but frown. The reason for that was because those 7 rays of black light were none other than 7 black roses. They were completely black, emitting an inky glow. They weren't real flowers, but a kind of crystallized black jade. Each rose was only 7 inches long. Sumo pinched one of them between her fingers, lightly rubbed it with her thumb and forefinger, and felt an extremely strange aura. This aura was similar to the aura in Moze that day. Sumo frowned again, but the pool of water in front of him had already disappeared. The 7 black roses were left in Sumo's hands. Spirit summoning. Normally, spirit beasts were summoned, but Sumo actually summoned 7 black roses. From the looks of it, they should be treasures. Sumo's spirit energy flowed out from her fingertip. That black rose suddenly lit up, emitting a black light like a flame. Curious, Sumo flipped her hand and took out a red flying knife from the ragged bag. That flying knife was taken from Dongfang Mu that day. That blood-red flying knife was an undying treasure. It was extremely sharp, and Yin Fingyun's golden net was cut by it that day. Sumo held the knife in one hand and a black rose in the other. Chi-chi, chi-chi. When the blood-red flying knife hit the black rose, it actually produced a chi-chi sound. Black light circulated, but the black rose was unharmed. That meant that this black rose was at least an undying treasure. However, after looking at it for a long time, Sumo couldn't find anything special about the 7 black roses other than their special texture. However, as long as Sumo infused spirit energy, the 7 black roses would instantly shine with black light. Immediately, Sumo took out a few defensive treasures from her storage bag. Of course, the highest one was at the soul transformation level. Sumo could completely refine treasures of this level himself, and wouldn't feel the pinch even if they were damaged. She tested it lightly. The black roses could instantly pierce through, even more powerful than a broken bamboo pole. Not bad. If Sumo used these 7 black roses well, it would be far better than a flying sword. As long as she used them, she would be successful. Sumo kept them in a ragged bag. Pure Land Galaxy technique. This time she had gained something. Sumo was almost certain that the place where his divine soul had reached was the galaxy. And the galaxy must have been a place of vitality many years ago, but then it became a ruin after an accident. However, what was the relationship between him and the galaxy? Sumo still didn't know. At this moment, Sumo realized that there were tears in the corners of his eyes. Sumo's heart tightened. He knew that everything was definitely not simple, but he still needed to sort out slowly. If his own cultivation level increased, he might be able to go further in the galaxy world with this technique. That way, he didn't know if he would see more. Sumo temporarily put this matter aside. He felt that he was a frog at the bottom of a well. What he knew and what he could know were too little. For the next 3 days, Sumo didn't go to the martial arts field. To put it nicely, it was to refine elixirs. He kept his door closed, and Guanxiong didn't dare to disturb him. In fact, during these 3 days, Sumo set up a barrier indoors and concentrated on his cultivation. Sumo secretly sorted out the various techniques that he could use in order to improve his combat strength. In fact, Sumo knew many techniques. However, some of them could no longer meet his needs. According to Miao Long, once he ate the soul-preserving elixir, he would at least reach the late stage of the deity tribulation realm. In that case, Sumo's next goal would be to break through to the undead realm. Unfortunately, Yi Wu Hui still didn't come. Did Sumo still remember that he promised to give him an opportunity to break through to the undead realm? It seemed that it was unlikely. 3 days later, Sumo came out of seclusion and went straight to the martial arts field with 2 soul-preserving elixirs. Chapter 314. Sumo arrived at the training field first. Miao Longer was not there yet. Sumo decided to test out his fist first. He threw a punch in front of the rockery. In the past 3 days, Sumo had gained a deeper understanding of the Golden Dragon Holy Wheel Fist. Whoosh! The power of his first punch had increased by a lot. A golden ray of light shot toward the rockery. Boom! However, there was still no effect. Sumo understood that he still needed some time to build up his strength. Thus, he threw 10 punches in a row without stopping. By the 10th punch, Sumo had already integrated the firewheel technique into his fist technique. Boom! Boom! This golden dragon fist took away half of his Dansi's power. Whoosh! Sparks flew on the rockery. Sumo activated the everlasting technique, and his Dansi was instantly filled. Open! With a shout, he threw the 11th punch. The number of punches Sumo could throw was decreasing, but the power of this 11th punch was even stronger than the 16th punch from that day. The golden light was mixed with dark red flames and starlight. The wind from Sumo's punches seemed to have set the air on fire. His entire body seemed to be soaring straight into the air. It was like a golden red fire dragon was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws at the rockery. Boom! Boom! In an instant, the entire training field was filled with the sound of an explosion. If there was no barrier, the spiritual energy would have been swept up into the sky. Whoosh! Sumo landed in the middle of the martial arts field and let out a long sigh. This time, his face was not deathly pale, and his entire right arm did not feel much pain. However, there was a clear mark left on the rockery. Although it was not a fist mark, it was not bad. Sumo's lips curled up. This meant that his Golden Dragon Holy Wheel Fist had indeed improved. 11 punches, although there was still a long way to go before Sumo's goal of 3 punches. However, Sumo had plenty of time. At this moment, someone behind Sumo spoke. Not bad. Although the punch just now wasn't as good as the waiter's, it was still a considerable improvement. However, if you want to challenge someone of a higher level, it's still not enough. It definitely won't give you the chance to land 11 punches in a row. Sumo turned around. The person who had spoken was none other than the white-clothed Miao Longer. As an early-stage deity tribulation cultivator, Sumo didn't sense Miao Longer's presence at all. This was the difference. Young miss. Sumo bowed and said, I will continue to work hard and strive to display the strongest power within 3 punches. Meow Longer nodded and didn't say anything more about the fist art. Sumo, have you finished refining the soul-preserving pill? This was the main purpose of Meow Longer's visit today. If she had the soul-preserving pill, she could help Sumo raise her cultivation level. I'm done. Sumo flipped her hand and took out a jade bottle. Eldest young miss, the pill pavilion sent enough materials, so I refined a total of 2 pills. As for the other one, can you give it to me directly? I want to save it for my breakthrough to the undead realm. Sumo didn't hide anything and indeed refined 2 pills. In fact, Sumo could say that she had destroyed 1 pill, but since it was originally someone else's material, it was also for Sumo's use. In any case, Sumo shouldn't hide the fact that she had refined a pill, so she might as well say it directly. However, asking for a pill was still a bit embarrassing. Oh, sure enough, it has a 100% success rate. Meow Longer showed a faint smile and said in an unconcerned manner, Of course. Those materials were originally prepared for you. Since you've successfully refined it, it's your ability. As for pills of this level, I basically have no use for them. With that, Meow Longer took the jade bottle from Sumo and poured out the soul-preserving pill. She wanted to see how good it was. With the soul-preserving pill in her hand, a medicinal fragrance assailed her nostrils, just like a golden bean. Best grade soul-preserving pill. Meow Longer was slightly surprised and couldn't help but look at Sumo. Did you really refine this pill yourself? Huh. Sumo smiled awkwardly. That's right. If you don't believe me, look at the other one. As she spoke, Sumo took out the other one. Meow Longer took a look and found that they were exactly the same. Amazing. Meow Longer took a deep look at Sumo. Sumo, do you have a secret alchemy method? Otherwise, it would be impossible to refine a pill of this grade within 3 days. In the entire northern Chill City, only my master can refine pills of your level. Yes. Sumo nodded. Back then, I did receive the secret teachings of the Windwheel Sect's senior brothers. Of course, Sumo could not say that she had the soul cauldron. A windwheel cultivator is indeed extraordinary. Meow Longer nodded thoughtfully. Sumo's reason was very good. Eldest miss, if you need anything, I'll tell you. I can help you refine high-grade pills, or I can help you increase the purity of the pills. Sumo sincerely hoped to repay the other party. Oh, Meow Longer smiled. Okay, if I need your help, I will let you help. Yes. Sumo nodded. Maybe the other party did not need it, but Sumo had to show her sincerity. Meow Longer returned the pills to Sumo. Sumo, take a soul-preserving pill and adjust your breathing. Then, I will help you break the accumulated spiritual power in your body. However, it will be fierce at the beginning. You must guide it carefully and let it flow through your body. Then, it will return to the Dan Sea and completely transform into the divine tribulation power. As for what level you can reach, it depends on the situation. Do you understand? Yes. Sumo nodded. Then let's start. Meow Longer nodded. I will protect you. Don't worry about anything. Yes. Sumo did not say anything else. He believed that Meow Longer could be trusted. Meow Longer had saved him, so he was not worried about any danger. Although Sumo was confused about why the Northern Chill City Lord would help him. However, everything was in his favor at the moment. Even if the Northern Chill City Lord really wanted something in the end, Sumo would think it was reasonable. If he really needed something in return, he would do his best as long as he could do it. Sumo sat with his legs crossed and closed his eyes. The immortal Chi checked his body and found nothing unusual. So, Sumo swallowed a soul-preserving pill without hesitation. The soul-preserving pill was used to protect the soul and the divine soul in case the power of the Dan Sea would affect the deity heart and hurt the immortal will. A divine tribulation cultivator would usually take one when trying to reach the immortal state. That way, even if the breakthrough failed, he would not have to worry. After taking the soul-preserving pill, Sumo felt 2 balls of light inside his body. One of them covered his deity heart. The other one covered his sea of consciousness. At the same time, Sumo looked inside and found nothing wrong. The Dan sea was stable. The Azure Skeleton deity root sat on the Nine Dragons deity platform. Miao Longer shouted, "Watch out, Sumo!" Sumo couldn't see it. In fact, Miao Long didn't do much. He just raised his right hand. He flicked his middle finger and thumb. It was too easy to help a divine tribulation cultivator level up. Swish! A beam of azure light shot from Miao Long's fingertip into Sumo's back. It was the spirit chi of a deity-breaking cultivator. Sumo's body shook. Immediately, he felt an electric current go from his back to his Dan sea. At that moment, the deity-breaking chi was like a sharp blade that could break everything. It was like a fuse that had ignited a bomb. Boom! 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 Sumo could feel his Dan sea trembling uncontrollably. The earth quaked and the mountains shook. The previously calm Dan sea seemed to be breaking through ice. Instead of rolling waves, there was a crackling sound. Chapter 3:15. The ice in his Dan sea broke, and the aroma of wine filled the air. Sumo could smell the faint aroma of wine in the depths of his Dan sea. Was that really a gift from the white-haired granny? The wine had been condensed for thousands of years without dispersing. Was that granny also a rebirth state almighty? His fortuitous encounter was too great. These thoughts flashed past Sumo's mind, and he did not dare to be distracted. At this moment, the power of the deity's tribulation surged in his Dan sea like a fountain. Sumo hurriedly guided the deity's chi to flow through his meridians. The unwithering chi and the endless flow of spiritual chi. It allowed Sumo's meridians to be tempered and nourished once again. However, the spiritual chi in his Dan sea was extremely fast, and Miao Long's realm-breaking chi seemed to have opened a gate. Whoosh! A moment later, a hurricane blew in his Dan sea, and the power of the deity's tribulation was like a tsunami. Sumo's mind shook. If it wasn't for the soul-preserving pill, his mind would have been damaged. Even so, Sumo felt like his body was about to explode. However, it was just a feeling. Sumo's unwithering bone once again played its role. His body was far stronger than cultivators of the same level. According to Miao Long, Sumo's body was comparable to an undead state cultivator. It was indeed so. The power of the deity's tribulation flowed through his meridians. The unwithering bone on Sumo's body secretly emitted a faint golden radiance. The radiance was extremely similar to the radiance of his golden skull. It was the radiance of an immortal bone. Miao Long kept staring at Sumo. She didn't peek at Sumo's Dan sea, but from the outside, Sumo's expression was extremely calm. Everything went smoothly. Sumo's Dan sea and body could withstand the power of the deity's tribulation that had been lying dormant for thousands of years. Sumo, who is he? Whose reincarnation is he? Miao Long frowned and pondered. Sumo must be related to the three realms. Otherwise, with Master's heartless personality, he wouldn't take care of him like this. Unfortunately, Miao Long's cultivation level was not high enough. She still couldn't see through everything, let alone know the true secret of the past. At this moment, Sumo's aura was changing. Middle stage divine tribulation. Miao Long could not help but nod slightly. It had to be said that Sumo's talent and luck were top-notch. Back then, Guanxiong had spent a lot of effort to advance. If he hadn't asked his master to prepare all kinds of elixirs for him, that guy would probably still be in the divine tribulation realm. Sigh, what a disappointing fellow. Miao Long thought of Guanxiong and bit his lower lip. It seemed like he still had to force that guy to improve. Otherwise, the gap between them would be too big, and his master would look down on him even more. Miao Long couldn't help but blush as he thought about the matter in his heart. 2 hours later, Sumo underwent another transformation. His entire body began to emit a faint green glow. In the Pill Sea, the hurricane just now was gradually subsiding. Sumo's meridians had all been tempered. Looking inside her Dan sea, Sumo's Dan-si did not really expand. After all, it was not a breakthrough of a major realm. Therefore, the Dan-si did not expand, but the spiritual energy was increasing. The Dan-si was vast and unrestrained, endlessly rippling. Although Sumo was a divine tribulation cultivator, his Dan-si was actually comparable to the undying realm. It was just that he had yet to cultivate the undying chi. Whoosh, whoosh. Finally, there was no longer the surging power of the divine tribulation in his Dan-si. This meant that the wine power contained in the depths of his Dan-si had completely dispersed. Sumo was still guiding the chi throughout his body. Late divine tribulation. Sumo could feel the improvement of his realm. At this moment, if his Dan-si was compared to a pool, he could already fill up 3/4 of the entire pool. Early divine tribulation, mid-divine tribulation, late divine tribulation. However, when Sumo reached the late divine tribulation, he did not stop improving. Instead, the spiritual energy in his Dan-si continued to rise at a rapid pace. At that moment, Sumo could sense that the blue skeleton immortal root on his 9 dragons immortal platform was emitting a faint spiritual energy. This spiritual energy was very special because it was the aura of the Silent Death Valley. Could it be that the blue skeleton also had residual spiritual energy? Sumo was overjoyed. Could he use this to break through to the undying realm? Oh, at this moment, Miao Long also noticed the abnormality. He glanced at Sumo's Dan-si with interest. She had completed the late divine tribulation and was advancing to the peak stage. Sumo's special immortal root was emitting a faint mist that even Miao Long could not see through. This was really out of Miao Long-er's expectations. Monster! Miao Long sighed. Guanxiong, that idiot. Look at Sumo. Miao Long cursed Guanxiong in his heart. Poor Guanxiong was currently lying on the ground in the reflection house, fighting crickets. He was really too bored. At this moment, he could not help but sneeze. Sigh. Eldest Miss must be cursing me behind my back. Guanxiong sighed. Then, Guanxiong raised his head to look at the sky. It was the end of spring and the beginning of summer. Sumo had been gone for almost 4 hours. He wondered how she was doing. On the training field, the blue light on Sumo's body shone brightly. Divine tribulation perfection. At this moment, Sumo's Dan-si was completely filled, as if it could overflow at any time. There was a faint mist on the Dan-si. On the 9 dragons' immortal platform, the blue skeleton was faintly discernible. Miao Long could not see it clearly, but Sumo knew that the skeleton's appearance had become a little clearer. Could it be that the immortal root skeleton would eventually turn into a person? Sumo felt that it was a little scary. Divine tribulation perfection. Sumo's spiritual energy was completely stable and no longer growing. In the end, he did not break through to the undying realm as he had hoped. If the undying realm was that simple, it would not be called the undying realm. Whoosh, after a while, Sumo finally stabilized everything. Then, he slowly opened his eyes. The divine light in his eyes was much more restrained than before. He was only 1 step away from the undying realm, but it was hard to say when he would take that step. Congratulations! Miao Long smiled. Even though she was surprised by Sumo's final result, she was not surprised that there were so many cultivators at the divine tribulation perfection realm in the northern Chill City. Thank you, Lady Miao. Sumo bowed deeply. Without Miao Long-er's soul-preserving elixir and world-breaking chi, Sumo would not have reached the divine tribulation perfection realm so quickly, even if he had the power of the divine tribulation. Sumo, don't be so polite. This is all your luck and fortune. Now that you have reached the divine tribulation perfection realm, the waiter should not be a match for you. Looks like I need to find an undying cultivator to practice with you. Go to the fake mountain and try your fist skills. Okay. Sumo nodded, then flew up and threw a punch. How could the divine tribulation perfection realm and the early stage be the same? Sumo's first punch was obviously different. The power of his holy wheel golden dragon fist had increased by at least 3 to 4 times. Chi. With a piercing sound, Sumo's first punch brought with it golden flames. Bang! Golden light scattered from the rockery, and sparks flew everywhere. However, Sumo did not stop at all. Second punch, third punch. The 3 punches were launched consecutively with an invincible aura. The third punch had already reached the standard of the 11th punch before he had leveled up, and the flames were even brighter. Boom boom! After the third punch, Sumo stopped. When he looked again, there was already a clear mark on the rock garden. A smile finally appeared on Sumo's face. That was because he could at least throw 2 more punches, 2 punches with doubled strength. It was definitely not just leaving behind a clear mark. However, Sumo decided to only throw 3 punches in the future. The power after the third punch was of little significance in actual combat. He needed to further reduce the number of punches. That's right. Miao Long nodded slightly. Sumo, with your current cultivation stage, you should be able to reach a higher level. With just this punch, you could defeat an undying cultivator. Looks like I need to find an undying cultivator to practice with you. Eldest Miss, I request to let Guan Xiong practice with me first, Sumo said in his heart. Finally, he could beat Guan Xiong up. Oh, Miao Long was surprised at first, but then nodded heavily. All right, it's time for him to improve. The two looked at each other with tacit understanding. Poor Guan Xiong, he was going to be unlucky again. Chapter 316. Deity Tribulation, Great Completion. Sumo was naturally satisfied with his improvement in cultivation level. However, he still needed to work hard on his combat techniques and sorcery. Sumo did not want to go through the same predicament as the immortal cultivator. Therefore, Sumo immediately calmed down after the initial joy. He knew that he was still very weak. Miao Longer thought for a while and took out a jade scroll. Sumo, the fire sorcery that you use to complement your fist technique is too weak. I have a sorcery that might be suitable for you. You can try practicing it. After saying that, Miao Long flicked his hand and tossed the jade slip to Sumo. Sumo caught it and didn't even have the time to thank him before Miao Longer's figure flashed and disappeared. I will bring Guan Xiong here in a few days. Practice well. Miao Longer's voice came from the void. Thank you, miss. Sumo could only express his gratitude to the void. However, there was no reply from Miao Longer. Sumo did not hesitate and immediately sank his divine sense into the jade scroll. It was a high-level deity tribulation sorcery called the Art of Absolute Flames. In fact, it looked simple, but it was an extremely powerful sorcery. It burned the power of the deity tribulation and turned it into an invincible fire. Although the fire could not burn a cultivator to death, it could burn and kill cultivators of the same level. All in all, it was not a special sorcery, but it was very suitable for Sumo. When a cultivator reached the deity tribulation stage, as long as the sorcery was not too special, they could quickly master it. Sumo calmed his mind and silently practiced the art of absolute flames. Soon, a ball of red light condensed in Sumo's hand. That kind of heat and energy could not be compared to the ring of fire technique. Therefore, Sumo studied how to combine the art of absolute flames with the sacred wheel golden dragon fist to achieve the same effect as the waiter. Sumo started practicing crazily again. In northern Chill City, there are 4 seasons in a day. In the past few days, Sumo had been practicing in the martial arts field, experimenting and punching. The fake mountain had become his imaginary enemy. That deep fist mark was naturally his target. Sumo believed that if he could leave such a punch on this rockery, then he could definitely kill an undead realm expert with a single punch. For a whole 7 days, Sumo did not leave the martial arts field at all. He was either meditating cross-legged or punching out fiercely. Occasionally, he would adjust his breathing. Many marks had been left on the rockery, and they were getting deeper and deeper. Outside the barrier, in the past few days, Miao Long had not shown himself. In fact, he had been observing Sumo. However, Sumo could not sense his aura. Sigh. Miao Long couldn't help but let out a long sigh as he looked at Sumo, who seemed to have gone crazy. Putting aside his talent, if Guan Xiong had a third of Sumo's ascetic spirit, his achievements would be even greater. One must know that Guan Xiong's starting point and the resources he possessed were not something that Sumo could compare to. Even if Sumo had a great fortune and obtained the power of 1,000 years of wine, he might not be able to surpass Guan Xiong in terms of cultivation resources. Unfortunately, Guan Xiong did not live up to expectations. Miao Long, who bit his lower lip and brought Guan Xiong here in a moment. Although the current Guan Xiong was in the undead realm, he might not necessarily be Sumo's opponent. Miao Long made up his mind. At this moment, there was a sudden fluctuation of spiritual energy beside her. And Miao Long, Er's expression instantly turned respectful. Master, looking again in the void, it gradually turned into a faint purple figure. That was not a real body. To be precise, it was a divine sense. It was just a silhouette, and the real face could not be seen clearly. How is it? The voice transmitted by the purple divine sense was extremely clear, as if the real body was right in front of them. Master, Miao Long, replied respectfully. Sumo has reached the god tribulation perfection. These days, she has been practicing her spells and has made some small achievements. God tribulation perfection? The purple divine sense seemed to be dissatisfied. Still too weak. There are 5 or 6 undead realm cultivators in the Dongfang clan. Master, if the current Sumo were to fight with all his strength, he would definitely be able to kill an undead intermediate stage cultivator. Miao Long said. In time, he would be able to kill an undead advanced stage cultivator. And the purple divine sense nodded. However, to fight against the Dongfang clan, he must have the battle strength to suppress cultivators below the burying god realm. Otherwise, he would be in danger. Moreover, there are many forces in the undead kingdom. If the Dongfang clan is in trouble, I reckon they would not sit still. Hee, Miao Long sneered. Master, if there's a need, I think there's no need to let Sumo go. I will let a few people descend to the lower realm and destroy the undead kingdom. While let Sumo go. Destroying the undead kingdom is not the goal. The purple divine sense shook her head. I want to see the foundation of the Dongfang clan. For this, Sumo is the most suitable. Miao Long frowned. She still did not understand why her master was going through so much trouble. Long, there are some grudges in the 3 realms. You still don't know. The purple divine sense said. Master, who is Sumo? Miao Long asked. Right now, I don't know either. I only have some guesses. Let's see the reaction of the Dongfang clan. Did you find people from the other 3 realms? Miao Long asked again. The hidden world is vast and boundless. Sigh. The purple divine sense sighed. Searching for a needle in a haystack is easier said than done. Moreover, we don't know if they have already been destroyed. That's impossible. Above the eternal realm, one can reincarnate. The supremacies will not die so easily. Miao Long seemed to be comforting his master. I hope so. However, I am afraid that they have been purified. Master, which realm is your real body in? Miao Long changed the topic. I don't know. I have gone too far. The purple divine sense smiled bitterly. But what? Miao Long asked. I seem to sense a trace of the Saint Lotus aura. Saint Lotus? Really? Miao Long's face lit up. They had been searching for the Saint Lotus for many years. I'm not sure. The purple divine sense said. I hope there will be some news in 1,000 years. Miao Long nodded. If they really found the Saint Lotus, many problems could be solved. Master, do we need to go to the Northern Chill City? Not yet. Longer. Focus on strengthening Sumo. If we go to the Undying Kingdom, let Guan Xiong follow us this time. The guy was really too lazy. It will be useless even if you trap him for 1,000 years. Humph. The purple divine sense humphed coldly. It's not that you like him. I would have killed him long ago. Thank you, Master, for not killing me. Miao Long said with a red face. He knew that his master was not joking. With his master's personality, without him, Guan Xiong would have died long ago. His master could not stand lazy people. because his master had been chasing after him all his life. I am leaving. The purple divine sense didn't say anything else and gradually disappeared. Miao Long saw his master's divine sense disappear and bit his lips. Damn fatty, I must strengthen you. Look at Sumo. After that, Miao Long body suddenly disappeared and then appeared again. But she was holding Guan Xiong in her hand. Coming and going, it was as if Miao Long had never disappeared. How could breaking the world be a joke? Hey, lady, what are you doing? Guan Xiong's meatball-like body kept shaking. This time, the lady was too violent. In the reflection house, Guan Xiong didn't know what was going on, but he was dragged out. Pang! Miao Long didn't answer. She threw Guan Xiong on the ground. Sumo, beat him up. Chapter 317. Bang! Guan Xiong was caught without a clue. He had no idea what was going on. How fierce was the cricket battle just now? He was watching it with great interest. However, the next moment, he was the one who suffered the most. Just now, he was caught by Miao Longer, so he could not exert any strength. Miao Longer's coercion slightly spread out, and he was completely confined. Guan Xiong was a little dazed as he was suddenly thrown onto the training field. Bang! Bang! At this moment, Sumo's fist had already arrived. It was Sumo's first punch, and Sumo's first punch was now far stronger than before. The air whistled, and the waves of fire attacked. Guan Xiong was a little dizzy from the fall. He only felt the waves of heat rushing towards him from behind. However, it was too late for him to dodge. Everything happened too fast. Miao Longer's coercion was vague, and Sumo did not give him any chance to dodge. However, Sumo was a little angry at Guan Xiong. Bang! That punch actually hit Guan Xiong's butt. Guan Xiong was a fat man with a body full of meat, especially on his butt. However, an undead realm cultivator's body was not ordinary. Therefore, at that moment, Su Mo felt as if he had punched a large leather drum. It was completely different from hitting a rockery, because a trace of the force was completely rebounded. However, that force was instantly dissolved by Sumo. However, looking at Guan Xiong, Guan Xiong's cry was very exaggerated, because the moment he was hit, he felt like his but was being roasted. That kind of scalding heat, even an undead realm cultivator would find it hard to resist. At the same time, that force directly sent him flying. At that moment, Guan Xiong's heart was filled with bitterness. Just now, he heard Miao Longer's words. Therefore, he was also dissatisfied. Sumo, this brat, hasn't returned to the Reflection Temple for 7 or 8 days. Why did you hit her when she asked you to? Based on Guan Xiong's understanding of Sumo, Sumo must have used all her strength in that punch just now. Otherwise, it would not have been so painful. However, all these thoughts were fleeting, because in the next moment, Guan Xiong was directly punched into the fake mountain by Sumo. As a result, Guan Xiong turned from a ball into a big pancake and stuck to the rockery. Miss! Sumo. Guan Xiong was almost crying as he slid down the rockery. Blood was flowing from the corner of his mouth, and his face was pale. He seemed to be seriously injured. Sumo, you're so ruthless. Guan Xiong's small eyes rolled back, as if he was about to die. Sumo couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. Just now, he had held back in his first punch. Moreover, he had not hit the front or back of the heart, nor had he hit the left or right ribs. Yet, a cultivator in the undead realm actually got seriously injured? Had his fist become so powerful? These 7 or 8 days seemed to have progressed too quickly. When Sumo saw Guan Xiong vomiting blood, she wanted to go over and support him. However, at this moment, Sumo Long coldly snorted and said, Sumo, don't believe him. I have beaten him every day, but I have never seen him vomit blood. Your punch was soft and powerless. It was nothing to him. Go over and beat him. Don't be polite, otherwise he will beat you right away. Huh? Sumo was stunned. At the same time, Guan Xiong's small eyes were staring at Miao Long sadly. Miss, what happened to you? Can't you leave me some room to maneuver? Between me and Sumo, who is from a northern chill city. Damn fatty, you dare play tricks. Sumo shouted angrily. The second punch was directly thrown. This time, Sumo didn't hold back at all. She truly combined the absolute flame technique with a golden dragon holy wheel fist. Chi-chi, whoosh, the sound of the air being pierced was accompanied by red flames. The punch was still 3 or 4 feet away from Guanxiong, but it was already full of flames. Miaolong couldn't help but nod slightly. Sumo was really a rare talent. At that moment, Guanxiong also raised his eyebrows. Divine Tribulation, Great Circle. He hadn't seen Sumo for 7 or 8 days, and he had already reached the peak of the deity tribulation. Even if he had absorbed the 1,000 years of wine, he should only be at the late stage of the deity tribulation. That's unreasonable. Bullshit luck. Guanxiong cursed in his heart. It took him hundreds of years to reach the peak of the deity tribulation from the early stage of the deity tribulation. Who knew how many good things Miaolong had fed him before he succeeded? Guanxiong, if you can't beat Sumo, I will trap you for another 1,000 years, Miaolong said. Also, I will never let you out of the reflection house again. You will beat me 3 times a day. Huh? Guanxiong complained. Was it necessary? If he was trapped for another 1,000 years, Guanxiong would really go crazy. He didn't need to beat him 3 times a day. Miss, in a hurry, Guanxiong still wanted to say something. However, Sumo's punch had already arrived. He had to dodge. Although Guanxiong was fat, his speed wasn't slow at all. Sumo's punch was about to hit Guanxiong. Whoosh! Guanxiong's body instantly turned into a shadow. At the same time, Sumo's punch had already hit the rockery behind Guanxiong. Boom! Boom! The entire martial training field rumbled. There was an extremely clear mark left on the rockery. There were even some traces of being burned. Guanxiong, who was in midair, was shocked. If this punch really hit him, it would definitely not feel good. Sumo had actually become so powerful in just a few days. This guy's realm and fist technique had greatly improved. Guanxiong had seen the Saint Wheel Golden Dragon Fist before. However, that fist technique shouldn't have this kind of power. No. This was the Saint Wheel Golden Dragon Fist fused with the Absolute Flame technique. One had to admit that Guanxiong had good eyesight and knowledge. Hee. Little Sue, you still want to hurt me? Guanxiong stood in midair and squinted his small eyes. Then, he wiped the blood that he had deliberately squeezed out from the corner of his mouth. His face instantly became rosy. Apart from the pain in his butt, he was completely fine. It's just a deity tribulation perfection. I am an undying cultivator. Guanxiong said proudly. Little Sue, do you know what an undying cultivator is? There is a huge gap between deity tribulation and undying. Don't even think of beating me. I am not that big rock that you can hit as you please. Hee. There was indeed a huge gap between deity tribulation and undying. Even if Sumo was a deity tribulation perfection, without using the skeletons and puppets, it was unlikely that Sumo could beat Guanxiong. Just as Guanxiong said, Sumo could hit the fake mountain, but he might not be able to hit Guanxiong. This was the difference between practice and actual combat. The fake mountain could only test Sumo's strength, but not his actual combat ability. Sumo looked up at Guanxiong. Damn fatty, I must beat you up today. Who asked you to look down on deity tribulation? Whoosh! Sumo soared into the sky and went straight for Guanxiong. However, he didn't punch immediately, because he only wanted to punch twice. If he couldn't hit Guanxiong with 2 punches, it would be meaningless. Hee. Little Sue, let's see who's going to beat who up. Guanxiong's eyes suddenly became piercingly cold. Actually, it wasn't that Guanxiong didn't have the strength, but most of the time, he was too lazy to move. But today, he decided to make a move. At this moment, he understood Miaolong-er's purpose. Miaolong-er wanted to temper Sumo, and at the same time, give himself a wake-up call. They were each other's whetstones. An undying cultivator couldn't beat a deity tribulation. What face would he have left? Thus, Guanxiong became serious. Little Sue, be careful, Guanxiong lightly shouted, and then his figure suddenly disappeared. Sumo was stunned. Guanxiong was too fast. Miaolong-er frowned because she saw it clearly. Guan Xiong used teleportation and appeared behind Sumo. The gap between their realms was highlighted. Guan Xiong, on the other hand, raised his left leg and kicked Sumo's butt. Chapter 3:18. Guan Xiong's kick was extremely fast and violent. Just now, he had been tricked by Sumo, so he naturally wanted to regain some face. However, as soon as he kicked, Sumo also disappeared. Sumo's speed was not slow at all. Whoosh! Guan Xiong's kick missed, leaving only Sumo's afterimage. Miao Long was also startled. How did Sumo dodge it just now? Guan Xiong's movement skill was personally taught by her. Sumo's movement skill was unexpectedly faster than Guan Xiong's. Otherwise, she would not have been able to dodge Guan Xiong's attack. It seemed that Sumo did have some skills. Miao Long felt that this battle was a bit interesting. Guan Xiong and Sumo were naturally familiar with each other. After all, they had traveled the White Bone continent together for 100 years. During this time, they had practiced many times. Guan Xiong was able to completely suppress Sumo in those years. Even if Sumo used those monstrous skeletons, she would not be able to gain too much advantage over Guan Xiong. Therefore, the moment his kick missed, Guan Xiong did not turn around. Instead, he suddenly leaped forward. He knew that Sumo must be behind him. Boom! Whoosh! As expected, Sumo's second punch came from behind. At that moment, the entire martial arts field seemed to be shaking. The golden red radiance on Sumo's body was no less than 3 feet away. The chi radiance on his fist directly reached more than 10 feet. The swirling wind from his fist caused the entire martial arts field to become a whirlpool. The power of this punch was far stronger than the real first punch. Unfortunately, Guan Xiong had predicted Sumo's movements in advance and had already moved forward. At the same time, Guan Xiong quickly formed a seal, and behind him, a chi shield suddenly appeared. It was a defensive spell. The chi shield formed by the immortal force was close to materialization. Even ordinary deity tribulation magic treasures would not be able to break it. Sumo's fist hit the chi shield. Crack, crack. It was not like the chi shield was broken, but more like a solid magic treasure was broken. In an instant, the airflow became chaotic like flying blades, whistling through the air. However, there were no low-level cultivators around, so no one could hurt them. Just like before, all the airflow that flew towards Miao Longer dissipated before it could even reach 30 feet away from him. A few streams of air seemed to want to fly out of the training field. Unfortunately, they were all turned into cyan smoke by the spirit power in the sky. Guan Xiong already had the chance to turn around. He really did not expect that Sumo's second punch would be able to directly shatter his undying chi shield. Just now, he thought that Sumo would at most create a crack. Little Su, not bad. Guan Xiong laughed. You can break my immortal chi shield. That was the ability to fight against undying cultivators. But it's still not enough, right? Sumo knew what Guan Xiong wanted to say. Yes. Guan Xiong nodded with a smile. If you have the ability, take a punch from me. Sumo sneered. AI. Guan Xiong shook his head, then nodded and said with a pitiful tone, Fine. Little Su, in order to convince you, I will take a punch from you. When you lose, you will know the gap between you and me. Good. Sumo raised her eyebrows. Let's see who loses. However, at this time, Guan Xiong attacked first. Guan Xiong was shameless. How could he wait for Sumo to hit him? He indeed wanted to take a punch from Sumo, but he wanted to take the initiative to attack. During this period, the gap between them would be huge. Of course, Guan Xiong would not be like the waiter, who would fight with a punch. That was not his strength. Guan Xiong's strength was naturally spells, and his spells were not weak. Especially in these 1,000 years, Miao Longer had taught him many great spells. Guan Xiong's hands quickly formed a seal. Rays of white light appeared on his hands, and the surrounding air suddenly dropped. This spell was exactly the same as the one that the waiter and Miao Longer had shown. Ice burial spell? Sumo's heart tightened. That day, the spell that Miao Longer used was extremely shocking. That day, the whole training field became a cave of ice crystals, and Sumo did not have any ability to resist. The pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. One had to admit that Guanxiong had more opportunities to cultivate high-level spells. At this time, Miao Longer looked at Guanxiong's hand seal, bit his lower lip, and snorted coldly. He thought to himself, "Shameless Guanxiong, you actually used a secret technique of the inner sea to deal with Sumo. The point is, your learning is really terrible. If martial ancestor Murong knew about this, he would definitely die of anger. Is this the inner sea frost spell? It is only a little more authentic than the waiter's, but it is still superficial." In Miao Longer's eyes, Guanxiong's spell could only be regarded as drawing a tiger from a cat, and could not be regarded as the real secret technique of the inner sea. It was even inferior to his own ice burial spell. However, even so, Guanxiong's spell was still astonishing. Whether a spell was powerful or not depended on the opponent. After all, Sumo was only a god of tribulation. Crack. The whole training field began to freeze, but it was not as fast as Miao Longer's. That day, Miao Longer could instantly turn the training field into a cave of ice crystals. However, Guanxiong's freezing was almost visible to the naked eye. The difference between the two was not just a little bit. It could be said that it was a world of difference. However, it should be enough to deal with Sumo. Guanxiong's lips curled into a smile. "Little Su, let me show you what a top-notch spell is." In Guanxiong's eyes, he was using an authentic secret technique. At this moment, Sumo really felt a chill all over her body. However, it did not reach the feeling that Miao Longer gave her that day. In fact, the feeling that day was equivalent to helping Sumo at this moment. In a split second, Sumo's body had a stress reaction. Whoosh, whoosh. Sumo did not deliberately mobilize it, but the immortal chi in her Dan Si suddenly burst out. In a flash, her body was ignited with endless golden red flames. The art of absolute flame was not an ancient secret technique. However, Sumo could use its power to the extreme. Guanxiong could only use less than 1% of the secret technique's power. Sumo's God's tribulation power seemed to be burning. At that moment, he was like a man made of gold and fire, suspended in the air. He was at least 6 meters high, and his body was covered in flames. Fortunately, this was the training field. Otherwise, the pressure would have spread for hundreds of miles. It should be noted that Guanxiong and Sumo were top-notch experts, even in the chaotic God's continent. Sizzle. One side gathered ice, the other turned into fire. Their spells were tit for tat. In the void, the cold and hot auras collided with each other. There was a sizzling sound, and an endless amount of green smoke was produced. In front of Guanxiong, there was an endless wind and snow, swirling and dancing. Then, the wind and snow condensed into a snowball with a radius of 3 feet. Moreover, the snowball continued to compress and crystallize at the same time. It had almost become a transparent ice ball with a diameter of 3 feet. Sumo did not use any fancy spells. She only used a fist that was like a fire hammer. The third punch. This punch had drawn more than half of the power in Sumo's Dan Si. In theory, Sumo could throw another punch. However, Sumo wanted to see the power of her 3 punches. Ice ball. Fire hammer. In the training field, spiritual energy swirled up like a hurricane, as if it was about to explode. Then, Guanxiong took out the ice ball. Sumo raised her fist and rushed at Guanxiong. Miao Longer frowned. Victory or defeat would be decided at this moment. Chapter 319. Boom, rumble. The entire martial arts field shook. Even with the existence of the barrier, the martial arts field shook thrice. It had to be said that the battle between Su Mo and Guanxiong was extremely powerful. Looking again, the two combatants were both sent flying. Otherwise, they would be affected the most. However, the martial arts field had limited space. Both of them had retreated to the edge of the barrier. There was no way out. Block. Sumo and Guanxiong both activated their defenses. Boom! Bang bang. Unfortunately, the aftermath of the attack was too strong. The power of ice and fire didn't cancel each other out, but fused together, producing a greater power. That power was far beyond the ordinary immortal force. The entire martial arts field kept exploding. The first to bear the brunt were, of course, Sumo and Guanxiong. At that moment, each of them was backed by the barrier and had no way to escape. They were surrounded by a tyrannical aura. The wind blades never stopped, and the explosions never stopped. At this time, several cultivators of the northern cold city stopped to watch. They also felt the shock just now. What's wrong with the third martial arts field? Are they setting off fireworks? Nonsense. Why would they set off fireworks? That's clearly the fire caused by the explosion of spiritual energy. That's not small. It seems to have reached the power of the mid-stage immortal. Are there two mid-stage immortal cultivators fighting? But the third martial arts field doesn't allow mid-stage immortal cultivators to practice. It's hard to say. I seem to have seen Miss take Guanxiong inside today. Everyone was shocked, but at the same time, they understood. Thus, everyone shook their heads with a profound meaning. Sigh, poor Guanxiong, Mrs. Too ruthless. Guanxiong's body would be smashed to pieces if he continued to fight like this. Even an immortal cultivator can't take it. I think it's hard, but I think it's okay. It's not a secret that Miss likes Guanxiong. You see, every time she hits him, doesn't she hold back? Then, Guanxiong's realm will increase. If she can beat me and increase my realm, I'm willing. A young cultivator was actually envious of being beaten. Hee. Several others laughed. In your dreams, beating was a sign of affection, and scolding was a sign of love. If it were you, eldest Miss would really beat you to death. In our northern chill city, no one else has that kind of treatment except for that damn fatty. You think everyone is willing to hit you when you're the young mistress. Sigh. That's true. The young cultivator let out a long sigh. Being beaten by the big miss is also something I can't ask for. They chatted and laughed as they walked away. The training field did not collapse, and the young mistress was inside, so she was definitely fine. At this time, only the area in front of Miaolong was safe and sound. No matter how violent the spiritual energy outside was, it was a beautiful day here. A power of that level couldn't even get close to her. Two idiots, Miaolong, looked at Guanxiong and Sumo with an unfriendly expression. At this moment, the two of them were already injured in the battle because they couldn't completely block that tyrannical aura. However, Miaolong did not expect the battle between the two of them to be able to unleash such power. Guanxiong was at the early stage of the undead realm. According to the classification of the three realms, he should be at the first or second stage of the true immortal realm. His body was already immortal, so even if he was injured, it would automatically heal itself. However, at this moment, Guanxiong was in a miserable state, because the explosions were too frequent. In fact, Guanxiong had a Dharma treasure that could withstand such an attack, but he didn't dare to take it out. He knew that today's battle must have been instigated by the big Mississippi. Even though Sumo also wanted to beat him up, Guanxiong didn't care. When he was caught, just now, he felt that the big miss was not in a good mood. If he was beaten up, it would be good to appease the big Mississippi, otherwise, he would probably be beaten up again in the next 2 days. Poor Guanxiong, of course, didn't dare to take out his Dharma treasure. Ouch! Guanxiong screamed miserably. His body was a bloody mess. He didn't deliberately repair his body, letting the flesh and blood fly everywhere. He wouldn't die anyway. Of course, he protected his internal organs and divine soul. Big Miss, help! Big Miss, I know I was wrong. Guanxiong had already said these words without thinking. Who cares if he was wrong or not? Anyway, he wouldn't suffer a loss if he spoke softly. The cultivators outside the training field hadn't gone far yet. They looked at each other when they heard Guanxiong's words. There was a look of horror in their eyes. Guanxiong is so pitiful. Who would dare to marry such a wife? Violent Queen, Sai, the two most terrifying women in Beihan City. One is heartless, the other is violent. Hearing Guanxiong's cries, the cultivators were afraid of causing trouble, so they immediately disappeared. On the other side of the training field, Sumo wasn't any better. He didn't expect that his punch would be like this. Of course, Sumo could take out the puppets to block everything. However, seeing that Guanxiong didn't take out his Dharma treasure, he didn't do anything else. Even though he was only at the peak of the divine tribulation, he had the bones of immortality. If he took out his Dharma treasure, it would mean that he was no match for Guanxiong. More importantly, Su Mo wanted to reduce his use of the puppets as much as possible. Instead, he wanted to temper himself. Therefore, Sumo didn't summon the puppets, but he had been trying his best to resist the explosion of spirit chi. However, his Dharma spells were constantly being destroyed by the undying force. By then, Sumo's body had completely cracked, and blood was flowing out like a fountain. However, his body was emitting a faint azure light, and his aura was much stronger than Guanxiong's. Guanxiong kept getting beaten, while Sumo kept resisting. That was the difference between the two of them. Miao Long looked at them coldly, and he couldn't help but feel angry. He had already seen through Guanxiong's thoughts. Although Guanxiong was screaming miserably, he was actually fine. That time, he didn't scream when he hit him. At the same time, he thought that Guanxiong must have sensed that he was angry just now, so he wanted him to calm down. Damn fatty, Miao Long cursed in his mind, but he still felt a trace of sweetness. This guy had been beaten up by him since he was a child, but he had never resisted. How infuriating! A woman's mind. Guanxiong really didn't understand. However, Miao Long narrowed his eyes. Su Mo and Guanxiong complimented each other. It seemed that, as Master said, they really had to go to the Undying Kingdom together. Thinking of this, the aura inside the barrier gradually calmed down. Guanxiong simply lay on the ground, covered in blood, motionless, as if he was dead. Miao Long suspected that he had fallen asleep. Sumo's face was pale, and her body was not any better. Many parts of his body were exposed, and a faint azure light was emitting from them. Although it was also a flesh wound, Sumo didn't have an undying body. Just now, he had been resisting, and even though he had the undying chi, he had consumed a lot of it. On the surface, Sumo was a notch higher. However, in terms of consumption and defense, Sumo seemed to be inferior to Guanxiong. Miao Long understood that Guanxiong didn't resist at all and was just acting pitiful. Divine Tribulation Great Realm and Undying Early Stage were, after all, two different realms. Although there was only a slight difference, if Sumo only relied on her own cultivation, it seemed that she could at most kill an Undying Early Stage. Moreover, it couldn't be a special Undying Early Stage like Guanxiong. Others didn't know how powerful Guanxiong was, but Miao Long knew it very well. If she let Guanxiong go and let him fight freely, then Guanxiong would have no problem killing an Undying Intermediate Stage. He could still come back alive from an Undying Great Realm expert. Moreover, if Su Mo and Guanxiong joined forces, coupled with their various magical weapons, as long as it wasn't a cultivator in the God-burying realm or 3 or more cultivators in the grand circle of the undead realm, it would be impossible to take down the two of them. This battle could be considered a draw. Miao Long thought to herself, and at the same time, she had a basic judgment of their combat strength. At this time, outside the martial arts field, someone suddenly transmitted a message. Reporting to Eldest Miss, an envoy from the chaotic gods continent of the Undying Kingdom is outside the northern cold city. An envoy from the Undying Kingdom? Miao Long's brows twitched. The Dongfang clan actually dared to come here. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.